ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Howdy there. Thanks for checking out another fantastic episode. As a special bonus to you for being here, I'm going to share something from the heart. Okay. Bumper stickers that promote political causes. These should only have one purpose, right? During the election year, they are meant to let others know that you are endorsing a certain candidate or proposition, in hopes that others will see how much support they have, or in hopes that someone would ask them about it so they can talk about their candidate and why they think he or she is the best person for the job. This makes total sense, and I have absolutely no problem with this. However, what's with the guy driving around with the Bernie Sanders 2016 sticker still on his car? It's almost 2024. Is this person still trying to convince us to vote for Bernie? Do they still want us to feel the burn? I don't think so. There can really only be one reason for leaving this on your car long after the election is over. It's their way of saying, it's not my fault. Whatever bad things are happening in the country right now are because you didn't vote for my candidate. And I want you to never forget that. At least this is the only reason that I can see. If you know of any others, please let me know. I understand the disappointment when the candidate you think will do the best for the country isn't voted in. And it could be true that the wrong person for the job gets elected. But really, keeping the bumper sticker on your car is not going to change that. So please, just take it off. All it's doing is causing the rest of us to laugh at you. And you don't want that, right? Unless you can give me a different purpose for leaving it on, this will remain my view. And if you can convince me, then I'm going to put an Abraham Lincoln 1860 bumper sticker on my car. Today my guest is Jeremy Runkle. Jeremy is somewhat of an unspoken celebrity on this podcast, as I have mentioned him many times, without using his name, as a person who was the first to show me many of the bands that eventually became my favorites. I have mentioned many times on this podcast that The Descendants' Milo Goes to College is my all-time favorite album, and Jeremy was the one who showed it to me. I have also mentioned many times on this podcast that 15 is my all-time favorite band. And guess who was the first person to show them to me? You guessed it, Jeremy. All that being said, I hadn't talked to Jeremy since like 1997, so it was so much fun catching up with him after all these years. We talk about a lot of really important stuff in this episode, but most importantly, you will hear somebody else, besides me, finally come to the correct conclusion that 1991 is the all-time best year for musical releases. Topics discussed in this episode are the Getaways, the Freeze Bombs, Best Buy, Bad Religion, Pennywise, Lagwagon, Strung Out, Face to Face, Swingin' Utters, Rancid, AFI, 15, Zack Attack, Stranger Things, MAGA Hats, Guttermouth, Propagandhi, Michael Savage, Sean Hannity, Ron Paul, Donald Trump, COVID lockdowns, Joe Biden, Anthony Fauci, distance learning, the police, the occupation, not the band, systemic racism, stewarding creation, the value of human life, intelligent design, morality, happiness, Jonah and the whale, free will, bullying, the Sermon on the Mount, and the only way. Enjoy the conversation. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I can hear you. Perfect, man.
Cool.
Do I sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good. I can hear you pretty clear.
Awesome, man. Perfect. Cool. That's always my worry. Like, it's like, oh, it's gonna, technical stuff is not my friend. So
yeah, I had to borrow this headset from my kid. So
that's awesome. So he can't be gaming this afternoon instead.
Oh no, he's gaming. He's just not using the headset.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, he doesn't use a headset anymore. I don't know what his.
Well, how's it going, man? Shoot, I think it's been I was trying to remember when the last time we talked was over 20 years ago, I think.
Like 20, 25, 26 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was 97, 98?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, because I think I moved back to Santa Maria, I think in 97. So
yeah, it was right around.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I was trying to like go back through the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we got that job together at that Sony job. Remember that? Where we went through that temp agency? We went and worked at that factory.
Yeah. And that was after Little Caesars, right?
Yeah, right after Little Caesars.
Okay. Because I
remember the very first day we worked there, I remember they had us putting together like electrical cages. Do you remember that? It was like aluminum. It was like aluminum pipes with. And
it's so fuzzy, dude. I don't remember because I think I got fired from there, and you still worked there.
Yeah, I worked the night. I got switched over to the night shift.
Yeah, because I would sleep in my car next to your car, and then I remember I'd go crash at your house when you got off work because my roommate had moved out on me, and I had nowhere to live.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That was like for the last couple of weeks.
I remember the first day at that place, the guy had us wrapping the aluminum tubes with electrical tape. And so it's like a huge cage, like a whole thing. And I wrapped the whole thing with electrical tape. And then the supervisor walked over and he went to grab it and it was sticky. And he's like, why is this sticky? I'm like, oh, I thought it was double-sided electrical tape. And he looked at me like, double-sided electrical tape. Like I was like I was the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah. Like double. So stupid.
He just like shook his head and walked away. And I was like, funny. Not the best first day.
Was his name Kevin?
I don't remember.
Because I remember my boss, he was a black guy named Kevin, if I'm remembering correctly. But like, I think when I started there, and I don't remember if you went in the same as me, but like when I started, I was on the line. I was like on a production line. Yeah. But then I got moved into like another department where it was like me and like 8 other people in a room, and we were like doing quality control. Like we would test all the units that were coming off of the line.
Right.
So were you in there too?
I got moved over to that eventually because like I remember the first line I was on, I was like screwing bolts onto the cages of the thing.
Right.
I still have anxiety about screw guns from that because like if I screwed up and the screw fell into the chassis, they would have to stop the whole line.
Right.
And then there'd be like a goal for the day of like 800 units or whatever. And so I would screw up the screw, drop it in the chassis, have to like stop the thing to have the guy come over and like take the thing out. And people would be yelling at me, throwing stuff like. Yeah,
I think I remember now. I think I started there now that you're saying it's bringing up memories. It was like a magnetic, right? And the screw was supposed to stay on there.
Right.
But sometimes it would fall off.
Yeah. If it fell into the bottom of the monitor or whatever, they would have to like turn off the electricity and have the guy would come over and like shake his head at you and like.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was right. That must have been right before I had moved because I know, like I said, I know I got that job at Sony and then my roommate ended up moving back home to Santa Maria and I was like, so I was just kind of trying to hold out and I think that's why I ended up quitting Sony or getting fired. I don't remember it, dude. That whole time is such a blur. I only lived in Ramona for like 8 months. Yeah. But it seems like so much happened in that 8 months. Like it's just,
I was just like going back through it. I was thinking about it, the last week or so, just been thinking about that time. And I'm like, I don't even really remember like trying to make like a timeline. Yeah. Like I remember like I remember when you started working at Little Caesars and you showed up as like a duo with Brian.
Brian. So that was my roommate. Yeah. And
you guys both started like at the same time. And I think we became friends pretty quickly, but I just remember like
over punk rock. That's why. Because it was like, and I've, it's funny. We'll start talking about it for sure, but I've mentioned you multiple times on this podcast before without saying your name. Yeah. Because I always talk about how to this day, Milo Goes to College is my all-time favorite punk record. Yeah. And you're the one that showed it to me. Right. Like I had never, the only song by Descendants I'd ever heard was Coffee Mug. And you had gave me the Milo Goes to College. You go, hey, check this out. And I had a delivery out to the estates and I listened to the whole album because it's like 28 minutes long. And I listened to the whole thing just on the drive to that one delivery and on the way back. And by the time I got back, I was like, oh my gosh, dude, this is like the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's still one of my favorites.
Oh, like it's classic.
Those guys, just for that being like 1982.
Yeah.
Is nuts.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of started something with that. I think that a lot of the because they have like almost a 90s punk sound. Yeah. Because like a lot of the bands from the 80s, you're talking like Minor Threat, you're talking like,
Black Flag, and some of that stuff kind of had like a more hardcore sound to it, where Descendants kind of brought that melodic aspect into it, and then
like a Bikeage. You hear like Bikeage or whatever. That's basically Blink.
Yeah, right.
Years before Blink. I mean,
exactly.
They didn't have there weren't that many poppy songs on there, but the poppy songs that were on there, that's exactly what all those bands sounded like.
Right.
Whatever it was, 20, 30
exactly.
years later.
Yeah, and they'll cite that as, in fact, I think Mark Hoppus even cites Silly Girl. As when he heard Silly Girl, that's when he realized that he wanted to be in a band. And he's like, oh man, that song changed my life, you know?
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. So
that's a good one.
Yeah, but it's gonna be fun catching up, man. Cause I mean, like it's been so long. And like I said, I was only living there 8 months, but so much like shaping and molding of my own life happened in that 8 months. Like, it was very shortly after that Bethany got pregnant, and then I became a dad, and then my whole life changed there. But that 8 months in Ramona was like huge. Like it was such a neat thing. I mean, so let's start with this too, because I was just thinking about this earlier today. In Ramona at that time, like everybody was in a band. Like the scene there was huge, and it wasn't like most of those bands didn't really get big or anything, but it was like there was so many bands. Like you were in a few bands. You had the Getaways and the Freeze Bombs, which I still have that. I actually converted those demo tapes to a CD. So I could put it onto my iTunes, and I still have them. I mean, it's horribly sounding just because it's an old demo tape. Like it's, you know, it's not like you were in like some kind of quality studio recording or something, but then you had like Aaron in Community Kids, and then later 21 Rest, and then Sparalumina. And then,
I remember those guys they're like a little younger than me. Yeah. But they were like my brother's age. And everybody, like at that time, it just seemed like everybody was in bands. Like, and like when I was in high school, like the cool person wasn't, I can't even remember who the quarterback of our high school football team was, but like, they're, that guy has a NoFX shirt, or, you know, like the cool guys were the guys that were, you know, the guys that you wanted to be were like the guys that were into like or the guys that skated.
Right.
You know, you're like, that guy can do, or he was in Skateboarding Magazine or some crazy thing like that.
Right.
But the Community Kids guys, I mean, they were like 15 when they were 15. I remember I was working at KFC and I wasn't playing in a band, and my brother was like, oh, my friend Aaron plays guitar. He's really good. Yeah. So my brother called me at KFC, and then I was like listening to then he had Aaron play the guitar over the phone for me when I was like on like working at KFC, and I'm listening to it, and I'm just like, dude, this like, and then I actually tried to join. I wanted to join their band. I was like, can I come over? Please let me. Oh, nice. I was like 19 or whatever. And I was like, and then it was obvious that I wasn't at their level. Like, even at that age, they were like so good that they're like trying to show me songs, and I'm just
well, what were you playing at the time? Were you playing guitar at the time, or?
Yeah, I was playing guitar.
Is that what you were trying to like be a guitarist in the group? Okay.
Yeah, but I think like I just wanted to be in band, so I'd play whatever anybody needed, you know.
Yeah, and I think now some of those guys used to work at Little Caesars with us, right?
Yeah, Sean and Aaron. I think Lonnie did too. I think
Lonnie. Yeah.
He was like real tall. He was a drummer.
Guy. Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if Ryan. I don't think Ryan did.
But I met him because he was the one that became the singer of the Rowdies, right?
Yeah, he was in the Rowdies, and he was in a really good band called the 45s too. After that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one.
I don't think they ever recorded, but yeah, really good.
Are you still in touch with any of those guys? I mean, I know Aaron passed away, but
Sean. I email Sean, the bass player, every once in a while. Yeah, he asked me if I had any more of the songs. He's like, I thought you guys recorded 10 songs for the demo, but I only have 6 songs, and I'm like, I don't even have the 6 songs that you have. I have no idea where it is.
For which band?
For the Getaways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was fun. Was there 12 songs? I think I only have like 8.
Yeah, it's like 6 songs or whatever. But I think
6, maybe 6. Okay. Songs, okay.
But even before that, there was I don't know if you know Dead to Me from Fat Records. Have you heard that guy?
I know the name. I haven't heard. I haven't really kept up with a lot of the newer Fat Wreck stuff. I probably stopped around the early 2000s, maybe. So
they're a bass player, and their main guy is from Ramona. So
really?
He was in a band called 80s Girl that was like they were like the cool band. Like when I was like a junior in high school, like not a junior, like right out of high school.
Okay.
They were like one of the first bands that was like, wow, these guys are actually really good.
Yeah. But 80s Girl, that's another Descendants song. I wonder if that was that was the motivation for that.
Yeah, probably.
But, and what about like Best Buy? Whatever happened to those guys?
I think the main guy, Richie, I think he's a motivational speaker.
Oh, okay.
Like Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is he that big? Is he like
no, not that big.
Oh, okay.
He has like books and stuff, but
oh, dang.
Yeah. I didn't really know those guys that well, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, because they were a lot younger than us, right?
Yeah, they were younger. Yeah.
Okay.
I already felt old by the time we met.
What about the guys from your band, like Josh and Gabe and all those guys? You still talk to them?
Yeah, I still talk. Josh is still a good friend. Like,
Okay.
He became like a college professor for a while.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he went to college and did good. He was like writing, and he's actually doing like stand-up comedy now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he just started doing that.
Oh,
But yeah,
how funny.
Yeah, I still talk to him. And,
that's awesome.
Gabe, I haven't talked to Gabe in a while, but yeah, we're still friends.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they like all moved all over the place, or are they all kind of in the same area?
Yeah, they all moved. They moved everywhere.
They moved everywhere. Yeah.
I think he's up in he's up in Santa Rosa.
Oh, okay.
Gosh, yeah.
Okay. Wow, man. So crazy. All right. Well, let's dive into music. I do music first.
Right.
And so I like to start with just talking about like the earliest time that you remember really liking anything musical, like whether it's just a song or a band, or like how young were you and you thought that's awesome. Like I'm really into that. Or
Remember the first thing was probably like flipping through my parents' records.
Okay.
Like, 'cause they had like a stack of records, and I would like look through there and
like actual records, like vinyl.
Actual records. I think I was mostly, I don't remember actually listening to them, but I was just like looking at the covers, because they had like Fleetwood Mac, and Ted Nugent, Leonard Skinner, and
nice.
the Eagles, Steve Miller Band, like all that like what you would listen to in the 70s if you were like 20. Because my parents were young, so they were like in their early 20s in the like mid 70s when I was born. So all that stuff. Okay. But the first thing that I actually listened to that I had the tapes was probably like, I remember at our house I had Rush moving pictures, and then Led Zeppelin 2.
Okay.
And then the first thing that I got that was actually like a tape that I got new was Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay. Nice.
So, yeah, I remember like listening to that on a Walkman and like riding around on my bike and stuff. But yeah, I was awesome. Like, I don't know. How old? You're like a little bit younger than me?
I think I'm 45. So.
Okay. So I'm 47.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But so like for me, like I remember like seeing like Motley Crue, like the cover of Shout at the Devil for the first time. And I was like, oh, that's like the coolest thing ever. And then I obviously watched like all the like Headbangers Ball, and like I was like super into all that stuff. Like Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Cinderella, Rat, Dawkins, all that. That like when I was like 10.
Nice.
It's funny.
You started with more of the metal stuff.
Yeah, because yesterday I was like, I wonder why. I wonder like where I was thinking about it yesterday because I was listening to Dawkins, and then I was like, I wonder like what this sounds like on like 1.5 speed or whatever. So I put a Dawkins song. You can change the speed of the music on YouTube. So if you crank like a Dawkins song up to like 1.5 speed, it sounds like Strung Out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the exact same. So I'm like, oh, that's like the link.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I got into like metal more, obviously. Like Metallica was that was like the first concert I ever went to was when Metallica and Guns N' Roses did that stadium tour.
Was that so? That was like what, 91?
91, 92.
Okay, this is like Black Album and Use Your Illusion, right?
Yeah. Okay. Right around then, and then so obviously I love that stuff. I was really into Suicidal Tendencies.
Okay.
Yeah, that was like a big band, and then obviously like all the grunge stuff. It's funny because I remember like I loaned you. This is one of the memories of you that I have. I loaned you Dear You by Jawbreaker.
Yes.
And then you brought it back to me and you go, this is really good, but the only reason you don't like Alice in Chains Dirt is because it's not punk rock. That was funny at the time. Like obviously I love Alice in Chains. But I think at that time, my identity was like so tied up in being like, but so I was kind of like denying that I liked stuff that I actually liked, Right. But obviously that goes away when you get older, but that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like for me, if it wasn't for that grunge movement of the early 90s, I would have never got into punk to begin with. Like, as far as I know, because I mean, it was only because I had gone to see Pearl Jam play in San Francisco and Bad Religion opened up for him. Right. And that's the first time I know Bad Religion is not really your underground punk band. They're, everybody knows who that is, but just something about the style of the music, I was hooked instantly. I liked it better than Pearl Jam, who I was there to see. And I went home and I went to Circuit City and I bought like every Bad Religion album I could get my hands on. And then from there, it kind of morphed into getting some of the Epitaph comps, which is where I heard Coffee Mug by Descendants. And, it's an okay song, but it's like 30 seconds long. You don't really listen to that and go, oh, this is my new favorite band.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why when you had asked me, oh, have you ever heard of Descendants? I was like, yeah, I've heard this one song. Yeah, it's all right. You know, and then you're like, oh no, check this one out. You know, and then now, I mean, I could listen to their whole, I mean, even the new stuff they're putting out, I think is still really good. But
did you see the documentary, the Descendants documentary? Did you ever watch that?
I haven't seen it yet. Is it
it's really good.
There's a few of them, right? Which one is it? The
Filmage, I think it's called.
Oh, of course, it's got an age on the end.
Yeah.
No, actually, is that newer? I haven't even heard of that one.
It's. I think it came out fairly recently, but it's really interesting because, like, I guess like the drummer was like the driving force, like behind, like he wrote a lot of the songs and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. It's a good documentary.
Yeah, and then you know, which makes sense because when you listen to like All, like the band, not the album All, but like the band All, it still sounds like Descendants. Just with a different singer, where so many other bands, if you change the singer, it's a totally different sounding band. Right. You know, but you hear like All and you're like, oh my gosh, you could easily just put Milo in there and it would sound like Descendants, you know? Yeah. So yeah, that's proof that the drummer and those are the ones doing the songwriting and all that. But,
yeah. And then I think, so after like around all the grunge bands I really like too, like Soundgarden. Yeah. And, I still like them. Pearl Jam. Yep. And then, and then obviously like Pantera and stuff. Okay. I think I knew what punk rock music was before I even really like had heard it, you know? So I was like kind of looking for it. Like at that age, I'm like, I know there's like, cause I knew I liked the fast parts of the songs. Yeah. And I didn't like the sword and sorcery kind of like, you know what I mean? Like the lyrics of like the fast metal songs. Sometimes it would be like not, you know, I'm on my steed with my sword or whatever.
right. Yeah. It wasn't really relatable. But then when some of the punk bands come in and they're talking about political issues and they're talking about, you know, depression and anxiety, like some of the stuff that we're all dealing with as teenagers, and, you know, it's more relatable. Yeah.
And then I remember hearing like Pennywise. It's funny because like they have like the connection to like the metal stuff is like their guitar player, like Fletcher's he's like a metal guitar player. Yeah. You can kind of hear it. Like it's like, they're obviously like a punk band, but when you hear like the first, like the Blue Pennywise album, that, it's like, it's not like bad. It's a difference like Bad Religion. Mm-hmm. They don't like, I think No Effects started the metal guitar player thing. Yeah. But like Bad Religion doesn't really sound that much to like Pennywise to me because Pennywise has like, the guitar is like, it sounds like a metal guitar.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's awesome. Like that song, that's the first song on that album, I believe, the one you were just doing. Yeah. Wouldn't It Be Nice? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Wouldn't It Be Nice?
Yeah. And then the drums come in and it's just like, oh man, it's just so awesome.
I remember like I heard you talk, I listened to a few of the podcasts. Oh, good. I heard you talk about, I heard you talking about like Music Trader, and I was just thinking like, but before Music Trader, we would go down to the beach a lot, and the beach had like record stores that we'd go to. And when we got Pennywise Unknown Road at a place in Encinitas, and I'd heard the song Unknown Road at like a show. Yeah. So, but I don't know why when we put the tape in, and we hear like the piano and the echo, and we're just like we're sitting in a truck. You know, used to sit in like the little trucks, like 3 people across. Yeah. Like we're just all sitting there like listening to it. And we're like, oh, we were like kind of like tricked for a second. Like, what are they going to be like Elton John now or something?
Yeah. But I love that, especially like now when I go back and I listen to that intro. I think that's the coolest thing ever. In fact, even though I think About Time is my favorite Pennywise album. Yeah. If I'm ever showing somebody Pennywise for the first time, I always show them Unknown Road. Yeah. Just that song, because it's like just the way that I said, just check this out. How you got this mellow piano and then this riff just jumps in there. And it's just, it's so awesome. So good. It's so neat. Yeah. But, oh man, so many bands to talk about. So what point, like what was the first, punk band then that got you? I mean, you talk about Suicidal Tendencies and then some of the early stuff was pretty punk rock, but I mean, like what's the first band that really just threw you into it where you're like, oh, this is awesome?
Yeah, I think it was Pennywise was definitely one of them. And then I had a friend at school that had an older brother that was that had been into punk, and his brother had moved out and he had like a stack of like cassette tapes that were like copied cassette tapes. Okay. And it had like Descendants and All and Bad Brains and 7 Seconds, SNFU. It was just like a stack of like copied cassette tapes. So I was like listening to all that stuff, and that stuff was awesome. And then Yeah. And then like, I guess, yeah, I would say, and then Bad Religion. I remember getting Bad Religion, No Effects. It seemed like it all just kind of like, you kind of start hearing about all those bands like around the same time, you know?
Yeah, because it blew up.
It just kind of blew up. Like it was like No Effects. I remember No Effects, they toured and they did like a show. It was probably like the White Trash, Your Heebs and a Bean tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day there was like 20 kids with like No Effects hoodies in high school. And you're like, what's like, I'm like, what is No Effects? And then the guys, there would be in art class. I remember in art class, there was like the cool guys, the cool like punker guys we were allowed to play music while we were doing our painting or drawing or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And they would play like some cool stuff. And then, I would just like ask like, what is that? Or and then you get the name of the band and then you try to get them to loan you the tape so you could take it home and copy it or whatever. Yeah. And I remember
Piracy.
Yeah, piracy. The old fashioned way.
Yeah.
But, and then I remember we used to, the DJ, we had like a DJ for the pep rallies and he would play at our high school and he would play music at lunch and he would play like, I have a memory of him playing like, Brown Eyed Girl by Lagwagon. At a pep rally.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, there's also like a contingent at our school that was like hippie stoner kind of people.
Uh-huh.
And, so he plays Brown Eyed Girl, but it starts off with like the Van Morrison song, you know, with the little like, and then like all these like hippie girls are like all excited, like, oh, I love this song. And then it like kicks in, it goes past. I'm like, okay, I got to get this. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember I don't know if you remember this or not, but I want to say his name was Kevin. He was a delivery driver. He had like a red goatee.
Yeah.
You remember him? And he was a huge Lagwagon fan. Like that was his favorite band.
Yeah.
And I remember we were talking about it and we were talking about what our favorite albums was. And I think he was saying Haas. And I said something about how Trashed was my favorite album. And I said, and it's not even, I said, I like Trash better than their first album. And he goes, first album? He goes, I thought Trash was the first album. And I go, no, there's this one I show as is the first album. He goes, dude, I didn't even know that album existed.
Yeah.
Do you remember this or no?
Yeah.
You were there too. And I think we were at Little Caesars when we were talking about it, and I was like, dude, and then we showed it to him and he's like, oh man, it's obviously not their best stuff, but
yeah, it's got some good songs on it though. I like that one.
It does. Yeah. It's got some really cool ones on there, but I still think, Trash is still my favorite Lagwagon album.
Yeah. By far.
Do you feel the same way?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember there was a show where they had, I think it was called like the Fat Wreck Circus or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There, and then it was at Soma, the second Soma, but they had like San Diego had there was like violent, like skinhead type of guys.
Oh, really?
They would go to, they didn't care about the bands. They would just go to every show. They would be in line for like a Blink show and they'd be like, oh, this is going to be a bloodbath. Like they want to start. They were just there to mosh and be crazy and like,
oh man,
beat people up. But so there was the show was like it was called like the Fat Wreck Circus, and there was like 5 bands. Like so, it would be like so I think it was Good Riddance, Till, Strung Out,
nice,
Face to Face, and then Lagwagon. Okay. And I remember like there was like a pit, but no one wanted to go in the pit because all those guys were like they were like going crazy and like hitting people and stuff. So it made the first like 4 bands kind of lame. But then by the time Lagwagon came out, and they did like, the song Island of Shame?
Oh yeah.
First song they played, you know, it kind of starts off like kind of fast, but not that fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like then it goes into that fast part.
Yeah. Because it chose to be this way. Yeah.
And when it goes to the he could take, and then it starts going fast right there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everybody started like running in this. It was just like the whole place was just like one big, huge circle.
Awesome.
And all the guys, all the thug guys are just kind of like looking around like, okay, what do we do? Like, I'm not going to punch 800 15-year-olds in the face, you know, but it was awesome because it was like, they was like, yeah, forget it. We're going to like go past that. But it's funny because like I remember Strung Out, like they were awesome.
Yeah.
But they would get really upset by the lack of response like back then in San Diego because I guess they weren't that popular yet. So, but they're probably used to playing where they're from.
Yeah.
Everybody would go crazy, but they'd play this awesome music and then people would be like, not responding in the way they wanted to or whatever. And then the drummer starts playing like, oh, here's something you guys might like. And he started playing Longview by Green Day.
Okay. I was just going to ask you. I remember that. I was going to ask you if you remember telling me that because we were talking about Strung Out and you had said that. You said, oh yeah, those guys are jerks sometimes because they're like making fun of Green Day and they're like, here's something you guys would like.
Yeah. In hindsight, I could see like where they're like, man, we're awesome. They probably knew that they were awesome because obviously they were awesome, you know?
Yeah.
So they're probably like, oh, you guys should be going crazy like they do in, I don't know where they're from. I think they're from
somewhere near me.
Santa Cruz, maybe.
No, I thought the same. Okay, dude, I just did a podcast episode like the three episodes ago that I haven't released it yet. But I was talking to a guy and we were talking about Strung because Strung is his favorite band. Right. And somewhere south of me, they were talking about how they ran into Jason Cruz on the beach and they were talking to him and all this stuff. So they're first from somewhere south of me. And I don't, really? But when we were talking about it, I said, yeah, aren't they from Santa Cruz? That's exactly what I said to him. But then I thought, I wonder if I just thought that because his last name is Cruz.
Maybe Santa Barbara or something like that?
No, yeah, it's near Santa Barbara. It's like not near, like near Ventura area, I believe.
Oh, wow.
I think. I'm not positive on that. So don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure they're from somewhere down there. And I know for sure, at least he lives down there now because this guy I was talking to said he bumps into him all the time because Jason takes his like daughter to the beach down there and stuff, and they'll run into him at the beach. You know,
I got like, so were you into like Face to Face? I don't know.
I love Face to Face's first album, the one that was on Fat. And I know they just recently signed to Fat again. I don't know if you heard that or not, but
no, I hadn't heard that.
Because there was a big falling out, I guess. Like, in fact, it wasn't on NoFX's live album. Fat Mike kind of makes fun of. It was like 1, 2, 3. You don't know what you want to be. You don't know. You know, he's kind of making fun of that song. But then Fat put out. I want to say Face to Face did one of the Live in a Dives.
Oh, okay.
That was on Fat. So they did a live album, and I just heard like a couple weeks ago that they had just released, or they're going to be releasing, a brand new Face to Face album that's on Fat.
Oh, really?
And I haven't heard it yet, but I love that first album.
Yeah, that first one.
It's fantastic. Songs like No Authority and what's that? You've Got a Problem with Your Life. I don't remember the name of that song. You've got a problem with your life. I don't remember, but yeah, I love that album. But as they went on, it was like, it's all right.
I always thought like Face to Face was interesting because all their songs are like, "You're doing something to me," or you know what I mean. Like the way that he wrote his lyrics was always like he was like accusing someone of something, or someone was doing something to him. It was always like really like
it's like the Taylor Swift of punk rock.
Yeah, it's like really like a personal. It's like I know he's talking about someone in his life, but I don't know how this relates to.
Right, yeah. Their lyrics are more like relationship stuff, and it seemed to be like not really as political and you know, that kind of deal. But that's awesome. Do you have this is gonna be a hard one for you. Do you have an all-time favorite band?
My all-time favorite band overall is Black Sabbath.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But my all-time favorite punk band is Swingin' Utters by far.
Oh, nice.
I'd say they're probably like the only band that I think that like I'm a fan of as opposed to just really, really liking, you know? Mm-hmm. Like I like them as like, I like everything about it. Like, so if something comes out and they put something out, I try to like it instead of just, you know what I mean? Instead of being like objective about it. Like I don't like a lot of bands. You're like, oh, I like 2 or 3 of their albums and I don't, you know, I don't really care for the rest of it, but like, I'm all in on those guys.
Yeah. They're another one that you had showed me because again, I think they had just signed to Fat and they released the Juvenile Product of the Working Class,
right?
Which I love that album. But they had one song on a Fat comp, maybe Wind Spitting Punk, maybe it was, or probably. It might have been that one, but you had showed me one of their earlier albums, More Scared, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's their first one, More Scared.
Okay.
The Streets of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Those guys were cool because I think like at that time, like people were starting to get into like the more like mid-tempo, like older sounding like punk bands, you know, like
they kind of folksy, kind of folk.
Yeah, kind of folksy. Yeah. Okay. And then we heard those guys like, oh, these guys sound like that stuff, but they're from California and they're
right.
Like, and it's new and it's not like from 1970,
right?
Whatever. But yeah. And then I think like they influenced like I would say like Rancid and Dropkick Murphys.
Right. Yeah.
Because their first album, Lars from Rancid produced their first album, and so if you see like the difference, so that was in between, or not the first album, but the Streets of San Francisco album.
Okay.
So if you see the difference between like Rancid, Let's Go, and then like Rancid, Out Come the Wolves.
Yeah.
Like in between that, he had produced their album, you know? So you can kind of see like where like maybe he's like, oh yeah, and these guys are playing this like mid-tempo stuff. It's like really cool.
Right.
We should like switch over to something like that. But
Rancid, and there's kind of a jump there for sure. Yeah, Rancid and Out Come the Wolves is great, of course. But I remember you and I used to talk about it before, and you always, I don't know if you still hold to this, but you used to hold to their first album being their best one.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah,
it's definitely the more punk. It's the most punk one, I think.
I like and Out Come the Wolves. I think the first 5. I would say they're almost equal. I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
I even like the crazy one, like the 2000. with the skulls. The skulls on the cover. It's all like
reggae.
No. The one after that. There's like the reggae one. The reggae one. That's
So Life Won't Wait.
Life Won't Wait. I like that one a lot. But then the one after that is like a crazy like hardcore thing.
Okay.
Like it's like faster. It's faster than the first one.
Yeah, I think that was because of the response because I didn't like Life Won't Wait when I first heard it because it was coming off of Out Come the Wolves, which just has so many catchy, just awesome songs on it. And I think the bass work on that album was, Matt Freeman is my favorite bassist of all time.
Right.
So then for them to go that total kind of ska reggae route, I was just like, I mean, I can listen to it now and appreciate it, but I was expecting, and I think a lot of people felt that way. So I think when they put out that one after that, they're like, all right, we're going hardcore punk,
We hear what you're saying. Yeah. I think, I mean, I probably like objectively, I would say, and Out Come the Wolves is probably the best one.
Yeah.
I feel like it has the best songs. Like, I mean, he writes songs like at a level of quality, like a pop songwriter,
Right.
Like they're like that catchy and that well put together. And I still like some of the songs they put out every once in a while. Like I'll hear like a new song and they're still pretty good.
Yeah.
I think he writes good lyrics too. But
they just played a couple years back. They played at Avila Beach, which was about 30 miles from me. Not long at all. And I didn't go, but it was them and Dropkick Murphys were playing together. And I was just blown away because I don't know what it is about people around here, but everybody was all excited about Dropkick Murphys. And it was like Rancid was the headliner. And I was like, why is nobody talking about the fact that, it's like, it's Rancid. Like, Dropkick's fine. I got no problem with Dropkick Murphys. They're okay too, but I'm like, it's Rancid. Like, it's like nobody seemed to care. And I was like,
That's funny too. When you mentioned Rancid. So you remember, we like back in the olden days, you like the AFI, right? Yes. Like that first album, Answer That and Stay Fashionable. Mm-hmm. And then they had the next one and I kind of like fell off at that point with those guys.
Yeah.
And then I went and saw Rancid in like 2000, 2001. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, AFI's opening. Like, oh, that's cool. But I hadn't followed them at all. so they were like waiting for AFI to come out and we hear like these kids start going like, there's no music or anything. And there's a bunch of kids start going like, through our bleeding. Dude. And they like start screaming. Like, no, there's no band on stage. There's just like a couple hundred kids like yelling this stuff. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then they come out and they have like all the pumpkins and they start playing and like, they're like, they look like, Danzig, like five little Danzigs on stage. And then they were awesome. It's awesome. And I was like, man, that stuff is like, that's some of my favorite, like melodic hardcore punk. Those like three or four AFI albums.
Yes. Yeah. So that was probably the same tour that I saw them on because, they played, it was after I had moved back, but they played, because I first heard AFI in Ramona also because I had a Music Trader, right? I got that Go Ahead Punk Make My Day thing, right? And there's those two songs from Very Proud of You on there, which as far as their skate punk music, that's my favorite album by them because it's just so fast, so awesome. But when I had got to see them play live finally, after I moved back to this area, they played about 45 minutes from here in Goleta, where Lagwagon's from.
Right.
They played at a place called the Living Room, which isn't a venue in there anymore, as far as I know, but it was kind of a smaller venue. But Black Sails had just come out. They had just done the All Hollows EP and then the Black Sails album. And, it was just like that. They had and I wasn't expecting it. They had the jack-o'-lanterns on the stage. He came out his face was white. His hair was like black. Awesome. And like, dude, but it was just like that. All those choruses of that album, cause that thing you were just quoting is like, that's the intro to the album, right? And he comes to the darkness, and he comes, and all those choruses, dude, when the whole crowd's just like singing it and they're just, dude, it was an experience like and I haven't seen them again since. Like, and I know they're way different now, and I enjoy their new stuff, but it's not like that, Yeah,
that stuff was pretty cool. I remember like those when we first saw those guys, they were opening for Swingin' Utters. And
nice.
Swingin' Utters had like a bunch of fans. They had like traveling fans, I guess. Like they had like it was called like the Utters Army. It was like almost like a fan club thing or whatever it was.
Nice.
And there were like a bunch of like skinhead kind of guys, I guess, but like, not like racist skinhead guys, but just
just kind of the
working
dress
class skinhead, whatever.
Right.
And they were like yelling for AFI was playing, and in between songs they keep yelling for the Utters, and then they keep screaming and yelling at the band, and then the Davey Havoc goes, "Guys, relax, guys, they're back there. I was just talking to them. They're here." They're gonna play. He's like, give us 20 minutes. We're almost done. They're gonna play. Trust me. They're not going to. It was so funny.
That's sad for them. They're like, oh, nobody cares about us.
Yeah.
Now they're probably looking back like, oh yeah, Swingin' Utters, who's bigger now?
Yeah.
Who's got the platinum album sales? You know.
Yeah. And that was a band too that I kind of decided to like not focus as much on lyric, because some people be like, oh, I don't like that band because their lyrics are cheesy, or their lyrics are
AFI or
just any band, and just like the concept of not liking a band because you don't like identify with their lyrics that much, so obviously I'm not like I wasn't like a goth kid or whatever, like their lyrics are kind of like, they could be looked at as being kind of like cheesy or whatever, but I'm like, I don't care, they're awesome.
It's a sound thing for sure, but I mean there is something to be said when you relate more to the band, and I was first exposed to 15 in San Diego also, which that's to this day my all-time favorite band. Yeah. And I think it was because back then I was, you remember I was a vegetarian. I was, I was an activist in a lot of ways, and I was relating to kind of the political songs that Jeff Ott was writing, and I just loved how it sounded like two singers. Even though it was just him, I was like, oh, I could have sworn
cool. when we first got Choice of New Generation, I swore it was two singers.
Yeah, that's the first album I heard too. In fact, I might have borrowed it from you. I think that might have been, dude, you've shown me so many bands. It's not even funny. Like so many bands that are my favorite bands today are because you showed them to me. And that's what I mean. Like you keep coming up in all these podcasts when I'm talking about this. I've never said, oh, it's Jeremy, or whatever, but it's like, but yeah. So before we go Swingin' Utters, do you have a favorite Swingin' Utters album?
I like Streets of San Francisco.
That's your all-time favorite one.
And then I like, but yeah, I even like the new ones. Like, was it Juvenile Prodigal Working Class? That one's really good. Five Lessons Learned is good. Yep. They also have like a folky like side project band called like Filthy Thieving Bastards, which it's
oh really?
Yeah, it's them with a different drummer. So it sounds like them singing for like a folky, like almost like a Pogues kind of thing. Like if you like like the Dropkick Murphys, like more folky stuff. So it's kind of like that, but but yeah, that stuff's really good too. But I would say Streets of San Francisco. But it's also, I just like connect with that one so much at the time. It's not even like an objective. It's not really like an objective opinion. It's just like, yeah, that was the one that like, when I heard it, like I listen to it, like I go back to them now and I listen to their lyrics and I still identify with it. You know what I mean? It still correlates to how I think in a way. I think that's like a lot of like where you attach to like certain bands more. Like there's some bands that you like, and then certain bands you hear them and you're just like, okay, like I share their outlook or like their worldview almost, Yeah. Like, and that's like too at 15. Like I mean, like now when I hear them, like cause I revisited some stuff this past week just in like so I was listening to 15. I'm just like, he would say anything, like the most outrageous thing without any fear of like consequences or like repercussions, or he was just like, he would just have like a thought or like an opinion on something. He would just like say it.
Oh yeah.
There's a song on, what's Extra Medium Kickball Star, where it's like, he's like singing. He's like, you don't like your parents? Run away from home.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like come here. And which I understand. I think where he was coming from was maybe a good play. I have no idea where he was coming from, but just to think that you would say something that potentially irresponsible. But right. But I think he was so talked with a lot of kids that were dealing with, and he himself was kicked out when he was like 12 or 13 when his parents kicked him out. Yeah. I saw those songs where he's talked about that kind of stuff. Like that Mama Said song. You know that song? Mama said, pour me some wine, son. Yeah. And you could have, where he's like, we need to lock you up. Yeah. He's like, and I never went home again and all. Yeah. It's like really. Is that Grow Up? And then we all pretended that I grew up. Or is that a different song? No, that's, I think that's a different one. I think the one I'm thinking of is one where he goes, I said, sure thing, just going to play one last show. Oh, yeah, in the city, go home again. Stop pretending that I had Yeah. That was good. Yeah, I remember we played with them when a show at the Elks Lodge one time. It was really cool. Yeah, I was there. Yeah. That's the only time I've seen 15 live. Yeah. And I remember, and this is what I remember at that show. But that was not the Getaways, right? That was the Freeze Bombs. Yeah, it was the Freeze Bombs, yeah. Yeah, and I remember the original name for the Freeze Bombs was Zack Attack. Oh, really? Yeah. The singer wanted to be called Zack Attack. And I'm like, dude, we can't, like, come on, man. Was his name Zach, the singer? No, it was a Saved by the Bell. The name of Zach's band in Saved by the Bell was Zack Attack.
Oh,
so
nice.
I was like, dude, come on, man.
That guy was all over the place too. That guy was kind of weird when he played live.
Yeah, he was an odd guy.
Yeah, he'd like falling on the floor. He's like flopping around on the ground while he's
trying
singing.
to be like Mike Ness from State of Mind or whatever. Yeah.
But I remember after the show you would because when you came out, was it like a jump you did or something? I forgot what you did, or maybe it was a Getaway show. I don't remember, but I remember you telling me that your brother was there and your brother told you, hey, dude, don't ever do that again. You look totally stupid when you did.
Yeah, he thought, don't do the jump. Yeah, I heard him tell me that.
So I don't remember if that was a Getaway show or if that was, or what. I saw the Getaways play once live too.
Yeah. That was funny. I remember him saying that. Like, oh man, I don't know. He was always honest though. He'd be like, yeah, it's not good.
That's too funny, man. Yeah, that's epic. That was great seeing 15 live.
In such a small place too.
Yeah. It was very intimate and, he talked a lot to everybody. And you listen to the live album and you get that vibe too.
Yeah.
I don't know where that was recorded, that Allegra album, but it was like, you can, and I think that's why that band was so important to so many people because it meant something, right. It wasn't just some guy trying to make money or just trying to whatever. He's just like, no, I have a purpose with this,
Right.
And a lot of kids appealed to it.
And he said he did a lot of if he was just like autonomous,
Mm-hmm.
like he would like sing obviously it wasn't cool, but he had like a lot of religious songs,
Yeah.
Now people review 15 albums,
mm-hmm.
and then I remember reading the review for Extra Medium Kickball Star, and he's like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's it sounds like Jawbreaker and Husker Du and only one Jesus song. That was like the guy's plus.
But it's funny because that song
that was the star rating. Is that like
but that song Jesus, it's not like it's a pro-Christian song. I mean, the whole point of that is like you guys all worship this guy and he never wanted to be worshipped. That's kind of the whole point of the song, right?
Yeah. But he's just like Yeah, and then also like I think Buzz is a really good one too.
Mm-hmm.
With
Food Not Bombs and Helter
Smelter.
Yeah, there's a song on there called Violation. That's one of my all-time favorite 15 songs.
Yeah, and then introducing some like ideas that were like that you don't want to hear, like political ideas that maybe whether or not you agree with them now. That's like where like that viewpoint. Whereas it's like in 1492 Columbus South.
Yeah, no,
like you hear that, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and then you kind of like it gives you like a different perspective. But pretty cool.
Yeah, listen up, boys and girls. Here's the history of the whole world.
And then there's they have that EP where they have that song, the Landmine song.
Yeah,
that song's intense.
So that was actually the first 15 song I ever heard. That's kind of a similar story as the Coffee Mug by the Descendants. Is I had I don't even know why I had it because I can't think of any band that would have got me there. But I had a Lookout compilation.
Yeah,
and it had Landmine on it, and I heard Landmine. I was like, oh, it's all right. It's a cool song. And then when I got to Ramona, that's when you had given me the choice of a new generation. And I popped that in and I was like, oh, this is good stuff.
Yeah. That one sounds different they all kind of sound different, but the choice, it almost sounds like one long song.
Yes. They're all very similar.
The song sounds kind of similar and what I like about them is, he was like a really good guitar player.
Yeah.
Like a crazy good guitar player, like in a different way than say like the guys from like the Fat Wreck bands are good guitar players. He's more of like, I guess like almost like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Style, like more classical. Yeah.
Or like John Frusciante or whatever, which I didn't mention. I was into the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I was going to say that's the Red Hot Chili Pepper guys.
Yeah. I like them a lot. I still like that out. Blood Sugar.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. That's so good. The rest of them,
the best.
Yeah. That to me from that era, that 91, the albums from like, like all the albums from 1991, that's probably my favorite stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
you get it.
Yeah.
See, that's something I've said lots of times on here before too. I say 1991 is the best musical year of all time. You look at all the albums that came out in that year.
Yeah.
They're just phenomenal. Yeah. Blood Sugar Sex Magic was one. The Black Album by Metallica. Right. Use Your Illusion. Pearl Jam's 10. Yep.
That's that's probably my favorite, like of the grunge, like the first 4 grunge albums, the 10.
Okay.
What's interesting about that Pearl Jam one is I always thought was weird is that not weird, but they had the music and then he wrote the lyrics and he came in and put the lyrics, and that's the only album they ever made like that.
Right.
So that's why that one seems like different.
Yeah.
Their other stuff is good too, but that one seems like a different, like more of like almost like a singular thing.
Yeah.
Because they did that process. Because I saw an interview with like one of the guitar players and he's just like, He's like, now we do it the way they do it now, I guess. It's like he brings in his songs and they do his songs. And the guy's like, I'm just lucky that he lets me be in his band.
Yeah.
But or he said something to that effect, and like we do a few of our own songs, but when like for him, we just do his songs, and that's like we're privileged to be. Right. Like for that first album, it was a completely different process. And
and none of their albums to this day have sounded like that. You know, and I'm with you. I think everything they put out has been great. I mean, I think they're amazing songwriters, and just the music they make is fantastic. I mean, even up to recently, like their latest album, I think is even good. But that 10 album is just, I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it's probably in my top 5 favorite albums of all time. Yeah, like hands down. You know, so many good songs. I mean, I think every song on there is good. I don't think there's a bad song on there. But,
great lyrics, great songs.
Oh yeah, man, for sure.
But I think I heard you talking about Metallica on one of the other podcasts. But like my window of Metallica appreciation kind of like closed to where I don't like the Black Album that much anymore.
Oh really?
Yeah, I used to love it, but now I'm like,
okay,
it's kind of it's kind of gone down to like Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All. Okay, but I still like the Black Album. If I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, obviously this is really good.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't mention anything after the Black Album.
Well, I like some songs.
Nobody ever goes past that because like, what happened?
My favorite Metallica thing of all time, though, is the documentary, Some Kind of Monster.
Oh, okay.
That's my favorite. It's the funniest movie of all time.
Because right, that's Lars and James are like arguing.
Yeah, Lars and James are fighting.
And Kurt's always trying to be the peacemaker and like, you know.
Come on, guys. It's the best. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And Lars is crying over his art collection. And have you watched it?
I haven't seen it. I've seen parts of it. I've heard parts of it. Like I'll be at work and I'll be like listening to YouTube, kind of listening while I'm working. But it's like, so there'll be clips of that. Like I've seen like 30-minute section and then another 20-minute section over here, but I've never sat down and watched the whole entire thing. But I think that a lot of their newer stuff. In fact, their newest album is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's really not bad, but I think they hit their prime with the Black Album. So I think the Black Album and everything before that was their best stuff, like hands down their best stuff.
I think there's some good songs. Like I liked a lot of the songs off the Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Yeah, I thought that one was good too. Yeah, that was a good one too.
Yeah.
And I'm drawing a blank on what the new one's called. It's Yellow.
Lux Eterna, I think. Is it that what it is?
That's the song.
72 Seasons.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. 72 Seasons.
They're like a good example of like where people are like, they have their fans of a band and then the band does like they do the best albums in their genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ever. Like they do like the 3 or 4 best albums in their genre and then they come out with an album that's not the best album in the genre ever. And people are like, oh, you suck now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're has-beens.
You're done.
Hang it up. Like, you might as well retire.
Yeah. 3 or 4 of the best albums of all time. That weak.
Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah.
But
what have you done for me lately?
Yeah. But something I've mentioned a few times on here too is because it's funny is about the Stranger Things. How Stranger Things like brought Metallica to this whole new generation of kids who you know, they're kind of thinking this is a new song. Like, oh, it's this Master of Puppets, this brand new song that just came out by this band. What's it called? Metallica? Yeah. Who are they? You know, it's like that song came out in 1986. What are you talking about? Or whatever that was, you know, it's like, oh my gosh.
That obviously I watched that show, like that character, Eddie guy.
Eddie, yeah.
Yeah, that just like, I was like, oh man. Like right when he came on the screen, I was like, I love this guy.
Oh, really?
Those are like the guys that I looked up to when I was like that age, you know? Like
it took me a few episodes. It took me a few episodes, but by probably midway through that season, I loved him too. I thought he was great. And then, you know,
like the whole like D&D and then the heavy metal thing and all that stuff.
Right.
Like, I remember those guys walking around and being like, oh, look at that guy. So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, they were the outcasts. Like he had a lot of enemies. Like the jocks hated him and you know.
And they always they looked mean or whatever. They're always like nice, cool guys.
Yeah.
For the most part, you know?
Yeah. They're just nerds. They're just nerds with that dress heavy metal, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I love that show. That show is just such a great show. But I think guys our age, we tend to like that show more than like say younger generations because it's our era, right?
Yeah,
it's everything in it.
All the references.
Yeah, totally, man.
What they did that was cool, I think, was that they have like a feel for what actual life was like then for kids, but then they also have like, they tie it in with the movie references and stuff really well, you know?
Right.
So it kind of gives you a feel of like how things actually were, but then it's also kind of like the Goonies.
Yeah.
Got like parts that are like Nightmare on Elm Street or like what's that movie? The Thing, like the monsters they kind of look like the monsters in like John Carpenter's The Thing or whatever.
Right,
so it's like there's like really super reference heavy. Like because in the first season I was like, do I like this just because of nostalgia or do I like this because I think the show is good? Right. You know? Like, but
and they admit to that too. They admit to, I mean, that's what they did. They flat out say that they are literally crafting different parts of the show based on movies they loved growing up.
Right.
You know, like everything about it. Like even in the first season, the Vecna, I mean, not the first season, the newest season with Vecna, like is obviously that a lot of that season is very Nightmare on Elm Street. Right. Like he's coming to them in their dream state, you know, and then they even get Robert Englund to play the crazy guy in the loony bin, you know, or whatever. But,
so cool.
But like the first season, you have like EETs in there because they're dressing Elle up, you know, in the dress. And it's so many. And I was with you. I thought the same thing. I'm like, is this just like, is it all nostalgia and that's all it is? But then as it kept going, I started to realize like, no, this is really good. Like it's good writing. The characters are great. You know, it's everything about it is awesome.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah. So, all right. So we may have already gone over some of this. So if this is a repeat, I mean, if it's a band we've already mentioned, just say, oh, it's definitely this one. But like what you've already mentioned, like your favorite bands of all time. But like, if I was to ask you what band has had the most like influence on you or the most like a band that's literally changed your life in some way, would you say it's one of the favorites you've already mentioned or is it a different band?
Yeah, I think I would say like Bad Religion was one of the bands where like where just like the thought, just like the perspective shift of like, you know, it doesn't have to be this certain way, you know, or you don't have to think of things. You don't have to think of things in this particular way. That was probably like an eye opening band for me.
Like lyrically.
Yeah, lyrically. But the thing is like after like, as I got older, I started reading a lot of books. I'm like, a lot of the stuff is from books. Like a lot of the great like punk lyrics you read, like, they took this from, you know, this is like, it's Dostoevsky or it's Joseph Campbell or it's Jack Kerouac or Ernest Hemingway, you know what I mean? Which is like, you get into those authors because they were referenced by those bands. Right. You know what I mean? Like you hear like Jawbreaker says like, oh, I'm into killing cops and reading Kerouac or whatever he says in the song. You're like, reading Kerouac, what's that? Yeah. You know, you go get the books or like Bad Religion mentions Hemingway in, Stranger Than Fiction, you know?
Oh yeah. I want to know why Hemingway cracked.
I want to know why Hemingway cracked. Like, yeah. But like, so they were big, you know, I think, you know, I was really into the Clash too. So I think that was like,
that's right. I remember that. See, now there's a band I still to this day cannot get into that band.
Yeah. I understand.
I don't know why.
It's weird because I don't really like them that much anymore.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, I listen to it and I go, that's all right.
Well, because their catalog is so short. They only have the 3 or 4 albums. Yeah. And they all sound different.
Yes.
They all sound completely different. So then you so if you like a certain aspect of them, then you have like one album to listen to. Right. You listen to that 84 times and then you're sick of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, like you listen to what's one of the, is London Calling one of the earliest ones?
Yeah. That's like their 3rd album.
Okay. But then then there's, which one's Rock the Casbah on?
Yeah. That's the next, well, they have one right after London Calling Sandinista, which is like, it's a triple album with like a bunch of like reggae and stuff. And then
see, that's what I mean. Like you listen to like Rock the Casbah and you're like,
it's all
is this even the same band? I mean, this doesn't sound the same. This is weird.
So if you're into them for like, for being like, for like punk music or whatever, there's only really there's like the one album and like the early singles and the rest of it is all different kind of stuff, you know? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they were big for me.
So do you have a favorite Bad Religion album? That's a hard one, huh?
I like them I like the early 80s stuff, but like I would say from like Suffer, No Control, and then Against the Grain, right? Is that the order?
Yeah. And then Generator was after that. That's where they kind of really switched their gears a little bit.
I still like Generator. I still like I like Recipe for Hate. I think Recipe for Hate has some of their best songs on it. Like
Thank you!
Kerosene, Skyscraper.
Yes!
I love those songs. And then like
Watch It Die. Everybody hates that album. I don't know why.
And then Stranger Than Fiction is really good too.
Yeah.
And I think like one of my favorite lyrics by them is I don't like the song that much, but Sorrow.
Oh, that's
where he says like if every living soul could be upright and strong. I was like, man, that's like that's pretty. That's like that makes you think, you know.
Yeah, that's a slower song, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a really good song.
I'm trying to think what album that's on. Is that on
I don't remember.
New Maps of Hell?
I don't know. It was like one of their songs that got played on the radio in the later times. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, it's one of their later albums. I know that,
but yeah, as far as the later albums go, I don't know that they're good. When I hear them, they're good, but it doesn't sound. I mean, like Brian Baker's a great guitar player, but I think he may be too good for.
That's the Minor Threat guy, right?
Yeah, he's maybe too. He's a guitar player now, but I think he might be too good for Bad Religion. I think Bad Religion needs like. They always seem to have like more basic guitar playing, so so like those albums. But no, those. But like Suffer, the lyrics on Suffer.
Yeah.
Like I still like some of those songs. I'm just like, wow, like.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Well, I was listening, and then Bad Religion was huge.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's like how much is enough? Where he says, what does he say about when will mankind finally come to realize their serpent has become their demise?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like wow.
Yeah. That one's on Suffer, right?
Yeah, it's on Suffer.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So I'd say Suffer's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Bad Religion?
See, it's hard for me because when I first saw him live was my first introduction, and that Stranger Than Fiction had just come out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was probably the first album that I bought, and I love that one. I mean, and I know a lot of the hardcore punk guys are like, oh, that was their sellout album, blah, 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 blah. It's like, whatever, man. There's some great songs on there. But like I said, I had gone to Circuit City and bought everything. So, I mean, it was really interesting for me to be listening to all these albums as if they came out on the same day or in the same year. Like I'm listening to the 80/85 album, which has a lot more of their thrashy kind of punk stuff. And then listening to, Recipe for Hate and, but I mean, I usually say Against the Grain is my favorite Bad Religion album. Just because I think it's a little more melodic. I like kind of more melodic stuff. But I love No Control. I love a lot of songs off Suffer.
Against the Grain probably has like the best songwriting.
Yeah, it's good. I think The Answer is on there. That's one of my favorite songs.
The first time I saw them, they played with Unread Law and Clutch.
Oh, nice.
Do you remember Unwritten Law from
I love Unwritten Law. Yeah, they're from Poway, aren't they?
Yeah, they're from Poway.
Yeah.
I remember when they were a demo band, we saw one of them at an ice skating rink in Mira Mesa, and we went up to him like he was like, we like ran up to him like, oh my God, you're the guy from Unwritten Law. Wow. And he was like on a date. So it probably helped his date so much,
Yeah.
Have these 5 like teenage kids like run up to you and say you're so awesome.
Yeah. He's like, that baby, I'm famous.
Yeah. So, but they played with, but then, so Unwritten Law played and they were great. And then Clutch played. And I remember them being okay. But then I remember like Bad Religion took forever to come out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was at least like an hour, but they played, the first song they played was, they had the lights off and they played a Generator. So,
okay.
Like a rock.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool song.
It just like exploded. It was fun.
Yeah.
They were a big band.
I feel like Generators when they were that, to me, that's the switch. Like, the switch from Against the Grain to Generator kind of led the way into Recipe for Hate and Stranger Than Fiction. And that's kind of where, and I don't really know what I mean by that. Like if you said like what switched, I don't know. But something about listening, I can listen to Suffer, No Control, Against the Grain, and it sounds like the same style. And then something about Generator, it sounds different to me. Yeah.
They started bringing in like the more mid-tempo songs.
Okay.
And like,
I
think that's what it was. And like the more like more like weird noises.
Yeah,
like
probably.
Like that All Good Soldier song.
Yeah,
that's when I think of like has like kind of a weird. It's still good, but it has like a different weird feeling,
Yeah.
Those other 3 albums are just like all the way through straight. Yeah, the same kind of good.
Hey,
stuff.
Do you know what I just found out recently? And you probably already knew this because you're more into this kind of stuff. But did you know that Eddie Vedder is on Recipe for Hate?
Yeah,
the album.
Yeah, he sings like background vocals on.
Yeah. And there's once, and now that I know that, and I listen to it, I go, "Oh my gosh, how did I never catch that?" Tell. I forgot what song is it. I don't remember what song it is now, but it's like he's literally like he sings backup in some of them, but then he also sings like actual lead vocals in one of the songs. Watch It Die.
Yeah,
it's in Watch It Die, which is another good one. But so crazy, but.
I would say I'd put them if I was gonna like rank my top bands, like punk bands. It'd be definitely one of them for sure.
Okay.
Like
could you rank your top 5 bands of all time, or would you have to separate it into genre?
I could do I mean, because like a punk rock is almost like it's almost like a parallel.
Okay.
It's almost like a parallel thing for me. But I would say if my top 5 bands would be Black Sabbath, Swingin' Utter, Thin Lizzy.
Okay.
And then Leonard Skinner. And then probably the Rolling Stones.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a band that I always thought I hated them.
Yeah.
For some reason, like growing up, even when I went through my classic rock phase and I was into like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and, you know, the Doors and all that stuff, I was always like, Rolling Stones.
They're like done, like some bands are done a disservice by their popular songs.
Maybe. Then I think that's what it is, because all I heard was like Satisfaction.
I can't stand Satisfaction.
That
song's, you hear it so much, or you hear like Start Me Up, and Start Me Up's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then you hear like the, you know, Miss You or whatever the other hits are.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they have like a string of albums that are.
Yeah. I think if one of your songs becomes so popular that Britney Spears covers it.
Yeah.
I think you got a problem there. You know,
yeah.
But like later in life, like in the last couple of years, I've kind of started listening to more of their, they got some great songs. Yeah. Like, I was like, whoa.
Well, because it's like as you get older, you're not going to like, I'm not going to listen to like Good Riddance sitting on the porch, relaxing, you know? So you have to find some music, like mellower music, you know?
Right.
To me, they have like the best, like a cute, like kind of like relaxing, like not acoustic, but just kind of like, you know,
yeah.
When you listen to it, you kind of go like, shh.
Oh yeah.
It's just kind of like relaxed.
Well, it's funny because some of the songs, when I heard it, they're songs I've heard before.
Yeah.
I just had no idea it was Rolling Stones.
Right.
I was like, oh, wow. Because I'm like, oh, I like this song. I'll be in a store or something and I'll Shazam it, you know, and it's like, who is this? Rolling Stones? What?
Yeah.
No way. You know, and I think a big part of it is just like watching Mick Jagger is like, oh, I don't like that guy. Like he's weird looking and he seems like he thinks he's God's gift to the world. And like, I don't know.
I remember as a kid, like the video for Start Me Up, that was like the song they played on MTV all the time. And he's just like, or like the duet he did with David Bowie, the Dancing in the Streets, where you see those two things and you're just kind of like, I don't know, man, this guy seems kind of, and he's also he's not like a great singer.
No, he's not.
No,
but the list, okay, so the list of that is huge, right? The list of people that aren't really good singers.
Yeah.
But are great at what they do in the band they're in. Like there's so many bands where I was like, if that singer was to go on The Voice or American Idol or something, he'd get booed off the stage.
Right.
But you listen to him in the band and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. This fits. Like I always talk about like Kurt Cobain, perfect example.
Yeah.
He's not a good singer. Like he doesn't have a good singing, but what he did with Nirvana, his voice was perfect for that. Like no one else could have pulled that off, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So I'm going to have you give me, 2 or 3 favorite songs from each of those 5 bands you just mentioned.
Okay.
So start with Black Sabbath.
Say National Acrobat.
Okay.
That's my favorite. And then Snowblind is really good. And it's another really good Black Sabbath song. Children of the Grave.
Okay. And then Swingin' Utters.
Swingin' Utters, Stupid Lullabies. And then what other? As I Start Leaving.
Okay.
And Strong Man.
Strong Man. I remember that Sophomore Scared, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that one.
It's funny, like the lyrics of that song hit me like a lot differently now than because it's like, you're the strong man who keeps pounding with a hammer. But it's like, and I thought about it, like now that I think about it now, I'm like, oh yeah, he's saying like you're doing something, you're putting all this effort into something, and it's never going to work out.
Right.
But you still keep doing it, you know? That's how I kind of feel like the lyrics of that song are now. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy, Freedom Song, Ballad of a Hard Man, and Emerald.
Okay. And Leonard Skinner?
Oh, all of it.
All of it.
Ballad of Curtis Lowe is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I love that song. And then The Breeze. And then another really good. I Ain't the One.
Okay.
It's really good. The thing I like that like when, cause like, you know, obviously Leonard Skinner has like negative connotations, you know, but then if you go back and listen to their lyrics, they're like, you know, they were like hippies.
Yeah.
They have like environmental songs.
Right.
They have songs like the Ballad of Curtis Lowe. That's a song about like, him going, the premise of the song is there's a black man in his town or neighborhood that plays guitar, and he goes and like gives the guy money to play the guitar for him, and his parents get mad at him for, they punish him for going over to watch the guy play. So it's kind of like an anti-racist song.
Oh, his parents are mad at him because the guy's black?
Yeah, okay. They're mad at him because the guy's black, but he's like, I went over there and played anyways because his music was so great or whatever. So they had songs like that. And then, they had like a Saturday Night Special, which is like about guns. But they're saying like, at the end of these handguns aren't good for anything but killing people. You should throw them all in the ocean at the end of the song. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which for where they're from and like, from like that part of the country, they were obviously like progressive. For that, especially in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, when you say they have negative connotations, what do you mean? Like, I'd never heard that.
Well, I mean, just people kind of think of it, because like the Confederate flag thing, and then people just kind of think of them as being like, like white
like
trash,
an alt-right kind of like,
or just like free bird. You hear like people like making fun of people yelling free bird.
Okay. So they're kind of like the poster child of the hillbilly. Kind of
Oh, Skinner rules. But
right.
They kind of do.
Which is a bummer because, like you're saying, they probably don't believe any of that stuff. Like sometimes people will take a band or a symbol and they'll run with it and it becomes something it never really was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like I've talked before about like the red MAGA hats. Right. Like, and there's this idea of like, they want to make America great again. Okay. Like in theory, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. But because of what that's become now, if I'm anywhere in public and I see somebody wearing a red MAGA hat, I want to get out of there as soon as possible. Yeah. Because I'm like, something's going to happen. Like somebody's going to come up to this guy and say something. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be something. I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with this.
Well, because it becomes like a contentious thing. Like I'm wearing this. I'm wearing this to like,
it could be
like an FU to people,
exactly. Right. But it could be, but not necessarily.
Right.
But that's the way a lot of people would take it, and it's almost become like a sign of racism or something. Like, oh, if a white guy's wearing that hat, it means he hates everybody who's not white. It's like, whoa, that's a jump.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why I would never wear that hat, because I don't want people to think that,
Yeah. Well, everything has to be all the way one way or all the way the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no no spectrums.
Middle ground is gone these days.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna throw out some of these other bands you mentioned, and then I want you to, and then we're gonna close up with this part of the music section, then we'll move on to politics. But I'm gonna mention a couple of these bands you mentioned, and I want you to give me a favorite album if you can, and then 2 or 3 songs that are your favorite. They don't have to be from that favorite album, but just in general. So you mentioned Strung Out.
Another Day in Paradise.
Okay. Is that the first one?
That's the first one. Yeah.
Okay. Really? You like that one better than Suburban? Okay.
I know. I think there's something different about it. Like something indifferent.
Yeah. It's a little heavier.
Voice. Yeah. The first one's a little heavier?
I think so. Cause that's like Bring Out Your Dead and like some of those songs, right?
Yeah. And then like the Population Control.
Yeah.
Like how it starts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like where I realized those guys were what made me realize that like, oh, if I want to play in a band, I'm going to have to play simpler music. I'm never going to be able to play this. Look, that was the thing back then. Like I remember like I had a friend that played metal guitar in high school, and the guys that were into like the punk music they would try to get him to like, come play in our band. They were trying to like convert him because they knew they needed someone that played guitar really good. Right. So they would like try to like bring him over into their band because those guys and the guitar players in those bands are so amazing. Yeah. It's like, I can never do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're awesome. When it comes to fat bands, they're probably in my top for sure. They're just, they're awesome. I mean, I think Suburban Teenage Wasteland Blues, I think it's called or something. That's probably my favorite Strung Out album, but the one after it, Twisted by Design, is a close second. I mean, some of the Mind of My Own and, Ultimate Devotion and it's just so good, man.
What's funny, like now that I think about it, because I was listening to your podcast with your friend Sabin.
Oh yeah,
that was a really good one. But you guys,
there's a lot of punk rock talking that one for sure.
You guys started because that's the ones I picked to listen to because like I would be like, stuff. But so he, you guys were talking about Guttermouth, and I remember me and you having like a disagreement about Guttermouth. Like,
thank you. I wanted to bring this up
in like 1874. So I'm like, dude, like why? they were saying how great these guys are. Why did I not like them? Why do I still not like them?
Yeah.
And then I went at work. So like you said, the best album was whatever the album was, Friendly People.
Musical Monkeys, my favorite.
Musical Monkeys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went and I put it on at work, and like I listened to the music, and then, like, yeah, maybe it's not so bad. And then the guy starts singing, and I like turned it right off.
Oh, that's why you don't like the vocals.
It was the voice, like something about the voice.
Oh, funny. And if you heard Saban's episode, we're talking about how Saban said he's the best punk rock vocalist of all time.
Yeah, and I started to think about it. Like, there's that style, like the bratty skate punk snotty style.
Yeah.
I don't like any of those bands.
Okay.
I don't think, because I never really got into the Vandals.
Yeah, there's select songs by the Vandals I like, but yeah, I was never big into them either.
Yeah, so I gave him another shot, man. Sorry. I'm still not into the Guttermouth.
Well, I wanted to bring it up though, because what I remember you saying, and you had an article, I forgot what magazine it was. You used to have a lot of punk magazines that I'd never heard of. And that's how you had all that. You had all this knowledge back then. You're like, oh, and this guy's this and this guy's this. But you were showing me an article about when they had left Dr. Strange Records, how they had pretty much screwed that guy over.
Right.
And that's why you were telling me you didn't like him. You're like, oh, these guys are jerks, man. They just totally like.
Or maybe that was Face to Face, I think. Because I know there was an issue with Face to Face where they left Doctor Strange Records, and they're like, but yeah, that's funny because like that kind of stuff, like at a certain point, like I did stop caring about all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. See,
you kind of realize like, yeah, come on, man. Like,
dude, I think, man, to me, Guttermouth is just, it's so good, dude. I mean, it's like, and most of the time it's not even lyrically. Like, I don't connect with them lyrically. I mean, sometimes it's funny, but I mean, a lot of it's in fact, a lot of the things they say in their songs are flat out in the face of what I believe and the things that I think, Right. But just on a musical level, it's just something about the guitars and how fast it is. And I love Mark's vocals. I think it's awesome. Right. He's got the nerdy voice, then he's got the raspy voice, and it's just like, oh man.
So one more chance in another 27 years.
Yeah, there you go. They'll probably still be putting stuff out too, because they're never stopping. So, okay, so you mentioned we did Strung Out. Pennywise. I'd say the first, not the first two, but the blue one, and then An Unknown Road. My two favorites. Two favorites. Yeah. Okay, you got any favorite songs?
Front to back, the whole.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah. Like Try to Conform is like one that I really like off of Unknown Road, and then Dying to Know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably say Unknown Road's probably my favorite by them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably my second favorite. I think About Time is my favorite, but just because that one's just, I think every song in there is fantastic. SNFU, here's a band that I haven't talked about yet on this podcast. That's in fact, when you said that name, I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I love those guys.
I like, they have the old one, like their 84 album that has.
Yeah, they were pretty hardcore in the beginning, and then they got more melodic.
That was like Cannibal Cafe. They had a song called Cannibal Cafe that was like funny, silly. They're pretty good. I think my favorite, Something Leafy This Way Comes.
Yeah. Something green and leafy. Yeah.
Had that like Joni Mitchell tapes song. I'm really liking that song.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. I think I found the Fayulaba, or how do you say that, in a thrift store, or I think it was a Music Trader. I saw that because I had Don't Have the Cow was a song that was on one of those Epitaph comps that I had, and I thought the song was hilarious because I was a vegetarian at the time. The whole idea of the song is the vegetarians are laughing at us now because now the cows are going mad. All the people that are eating meat, they're getting mad cow disease and they're dying and all this stuff, and all the vegetarians are just laughing their heads off at us. And so I thought that song was cool. So when I saw that album in the Music Trader for like $3 or $4, I was like, oh, I'll pick it up. Ended up loving the whole album. And then, so I mean, I stay more around their kind of melodic stuff, like probably that one, and then Most Likely to Succeed was another good one that was in that era. All right,
it's interesting because like Epitaph at the time they had like a pretty diverse.
Yeah,
they didn't have like Fat Records. You kind of like
Fat Records typecast, right? All the bands kind of sound the same. Yeah,
but like Epitaph, you'd go listen to something, you like buy like a Gas Huffer CD because it's on.
Yes,
and you're like
totally different. Yeah,
it's cool,
totally
but it doesn't sound anything like
exactly
the other
right.
stuff.
And I think Lookout Records was the same.
Yeah.
Right. They had some of their bands were very similar, like Screeching Weasel, The Queers, all that. More bands that you showed me, by the way, that I'd never heard of until you showed them to me.
That's funny too, because I remember when I think about Lookout, because I remember I got the guys at Music Trader guys. I think some of those guys were from the ones who worked at the Poway one. They were from the Bay Area. So they kind of like knew that scene. Like they were like a little bit older.
Yeah.
And I remember I bought the Filth Blats.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I took it home and I listened to it and I was like, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like Filth is okay now. Like, I mean, I've whatever, but at the time I didn't like it. So like you could trade the stuff back in, you know?
Right.
So I remember I took the Filth Blats tape back to Music Trader and I set it down on the thing and the guy goes, what kind of punk rocker turns into Filth Blat, trades into Filth Blats split? And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I didn't like it.
And then you feel like a poser or something. You're like,
I was like,
sorry, I guess I'm not as punk as you. I'm sorry.
Go home and try to like it again.
Yeah.
Even though
force myself.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's the old, the hipster bullying.
Yeah.
Hipster bullying of the early 90s.
Yeah. Well, cause it's funny because I used to feel that way going in there too. Like I thought, I wonder if these guys are judging me for what I'm picking out, you know? Is this punk enough? Or I'm like, you know, which I look back on now, I think is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like who cares? If I like it, I'm listening to it. I don't care what you think, you know?
Right. But yeah, cause I remember like getting, in high school, like the cool guys, like I remember I was like wore a Pearl Jam shirt to school in like my freshman year, sophomore year.
Nice.
Like I remember this guy going, oh, that's the new, trendy band or whatever. It's like stuck with me. Like I'm like, wait, no, it's good. Like they're still good. Like I still like it.
Exactly. Yeah. People are dumb, man.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
That's funny. But yeah. All right. Lastly, NoFX.
Yeah. NoFX is they haven't like stuck with me as much as like some of the other band. Like I mean, cause like now I'd probably like Lagwagon more than NoFX. Oh, okay. But I think I would say my favorite albums by them are like from like Ribbed, like Ribbed, The Longest Line, White Trash, Weaves and a Bean. I like, and then Punk and Drublick is obviously like perfect. Right, it's like the perfect. That's like the perfect encapsulation of that sound, that style of music. You know, I think. And then what's the ones after that? Like Heavy Petting Zoo. I don't think I've even ever heard it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think I heard that it was like slow, or I heard like one or two songs.
Well, it's weird. There's a couple really good fast punk songs on there, but then they threw in like some ska sounds, like where songs were like El Jefe sings most of the vocal. I mean, which is fine, and they're fine songs, but if you're coming off of Punk and Drublick, you know, but of course they had a few slower reggae songs on there too, like Rico and some of those songs that were on Punk and Drublick towards the end. You're like, well, this doesn't sound.
Yeah, they're kind of more thrown in. It's like joke songs.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But yeah,
you know?
I like. And then what's the one that looks like Neapolitan ice cream? That one's cool.
Oh, So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes. Yeah,
I like The Decline, War and Errorism. I like those ones.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I would say my favorite's probably Punk and Drublick, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think. Yeah, they're an interesting band though. Just like the way that they went from, you know, the early stuff to like the later stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they've changed a lot. Yeah, I think I heard on one of the podcasts you were saying that like you thought the sound started on the one song on Ribbed. LA. Yeah. So I listened to Rib. Yeah. I listened to Rib today and I was like, that seems like the beginning of where they started to get good. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like you probably heard me say then that the first album I ever heard by NoFX was the live one. Right. That was literally the first time I'd ever heard any NoFX song, and I listened to it and I loved it. I loved the whole thing. Well, on that live album, they play LA, but they changed it to East Bay. So the lyrics are different, but it's still the same, get out of my way. It's like this fast kind of really cool lyrics and stuff. And, but yeah, I feel like that song on Ribbed, like if you listen to Ribbed all the way through, there's some decent songs on there, but to me anyway, that song was a lead in to what they did on Longest Line after that, with Death of John Smith and The Longest Line and Stranded and some of those songs. And then into White Trash. And that kind of started the whole kind of skate punk sound, I think, for them. Oh, for sure. Anyway, but yeah, I love those guys. I didn't get a chance. I haven't got a chance to see them on their final tour, but, that was one band that I never got to see. Oh, never? Even once? Okay. Yeah. But also like Propagandhi, like they were a big band from that time. See, another good one. I remember I seen those guys I remember they played at, did you ever go to the World Beat Center in San Diego? No. So it's like the lady that owns the place and runs it. She's somehow related to one of the guys in the Wailers from like, Bob Marley and the Wailers. Oh, really? She's like Bunny Wailer's wife or something like that. So she's like obviously like a Rastafarian or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they played at her club and they're like playing. That was like the first band that ever like yelled at people for like dancing or. Well, and then they have that Haile Selassie song. Yeah. Where they're like, so we're watching them and they're playing. And like, I remember seeing, like, we were standing up front and the guy was like You know, you listen to something and you're like, oh, there's no way he plays that and sings that like that.
Yeah.
Live, but he did it. Like he played perfect, and he played perfect. And then they started playing the Halle Salas song. They started playing that. Well, you speak of Rastafari. And the lady and like all these like Rastafarian guys, because it's like it was like a reggae club, you know? And then he's just like, they're right there, you know? He's like, oh, you're going to do it? Like, no, like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to play my song. It's in the sound list. I'm going to play my song.
Yeah.
But it was pretty, I was like, wow.
Well, they were so in your face, that band, especially their first couple albums, just like, but I think that's what I liked about them too. Because again, I was a vegetarian. I believed in a lot of the things that they believed at the time. And it was like, oh, this is my band right here. You know, these guys are telling it like it is, you know?
Yeah. They were great.
I still like them. Especially those early albums though. I think their first two are hands down the best.
Yeah. The newest one's good.
I heard that. I haven't listened to it yet, but I've heard it's really more like their old style.
Yeah, they kind of went away from came back to like less metal.
Yeah, because I think it was the third album that they added that guy from I Spy.
Yeah.
And he was a second vocalist because the other guy left and went to the Weaker Thans.
Right.
And then they brought in that guy from I Spy, and then it became like really heavy. Like,
really.
I don't know, like it was like a hardcore
really
band
different.
now. I was like, what happened to the last, you know? But I've heard that they've kind of moved, and now I guess they have a female guitarist now, or
they have a female guitar player on there.
Yeah.
So, the drum's pretty good. So yeah.
I'll have to check it out. But all right, man, we need any breaks or anything? You're good? You want
to no, I'm good.
All right. Well, digging into some politics?
Yeah, sure.
That's what you've been waiting for? You know, the most exciting part?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping I could stretch the music thing out for the full time and not have to.
Well, there's two kinds of politics there's two places we can go. Like there's either talk about Trump and Biden and the government and Gavin Newsom and like all that kind of stuff in the government and what they're doing and not doing. And then there's just talking about world issues, things that are happening that you think shouldn't be happening, should be happening.
Right.
You know, so I mean, we can go both places. I mean, wherever you really want to go. So
yeah, that's good with me.
Okay. So, I mean, just do you consider yourself to be a political person, or are you just kind of like, I don't care?
No, I definitely care. I got into, there was like a period in my life where I got super into where I got into politics, like following it and trying to like come up with like a cogent, like, you know, look at the perspectives of both sides and try to figure out. So I was on a drive to, Eureka, because Josh used to live in Eureka.
Oh, okay.
And I drove up there to visit him, and I was going through like the middle of the state, and I got sick of whatever CDs I had, so I put on like talk radio, and it was like some like conservative. It was like in Fresno or something. So like some conservative talk radio guy starts talking. He's saying stuff, and I'm just like, I didn't think my view had been so closed off that I was like, I didn't know people still thought like this.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean? I just thought that like the default, like I guess you would say like default like liberal positions. That was just how everybody thought. I didn't think that there was any validity to it. So then I started listening to that was when Air America was on. Do you remember Air America?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So my job was like delivering. So I had a delivery route, then delivering magazines to stores and stuff.
Okay.
So I would switch back and forth between like the conservative talk radio and then like the liberal talk radio to try to get like a balanced opinion and try to like see where these other people were coming from. And like, I think that like, I don't know if you ever remember like Michael Savage.
Oh yeah.
I would hear his show, and like the thing about him was like he would say like wild things, you know?
Yeah.
But he was like, you could tell he was intelligent and he was funny and he seemed sincere, you know?
Right.
So like in a way that someone like Sean Hannity doesn't.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to me? Like just from my perspective, I'm not saying that he's insincere, but there's like a different, like I like for me anyways, like I took it as being like a less sincere thing. So I think that.
Yeah. Sean Hannity to me seems more like a paid guy, like a, you know, I mean, even though he may say some things I agree with, he's not my favorite.
And also I was like a pretty left wing, I would say at that point in my life. And I would like when you switch back and forth between the news channels, they use like, certain kinds of arguments for certain points, you know? Mm-hmm. So if there's an issue that comes up, they would use this like rhetorical argument to be against a certain thing. And then you would make a note in your head, like, okay, so Keith Olbermann had used this argument against this thing. And then like something would happen that for the other side was the same thing. And then they would use that argument, and then he would switch back and use a different argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you kind of realize that, like, oh, these people don't really care about their side. They care about their team.
Right.
And as far as like what they really feel about the stuff, it's arbitrary.
Yeah. It's almost like it's
situational, I guess.
Right.
Better word for it.
Well, and it's almost like the whole point is to win the argument.
Right.
To where I firmly believe that no matter what discussion you're in with anybody or debate or argument, whatever you want to call it, the goal of anybody in that should never be to win the argument.
Right.
The goal should be to find out what the truth is in this, whatever the situation. Tell me to the best we can. Obviously, sometimes we can't do that. We can't come to that conclusion.
I think people have a thing where they feel that if they say something bad about someone that's on their side, that they're given ammunition to like the other side of the argument, you know. But if you're in a group, if you associate yourself with a group or like a people, and that group of people does something wrong, you should be more hard on them than the other side is, because, you know, hey, you're screwing up our thing. We're trying to do something here and you're messing it up. Because I remember, like, when I was getting tattoos, like I was getting tattooed by this guy, and a guy came in and he goes, "Hey man, would you tattoo a stone mason on my forehead?" And the guy's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And then I asked him, I was talking about it afterwards, and he's like, because I'm to the tattoo culture, and it's just now being legalized. It's just now starting to be accepted. If I give someone that's not part of the culture some dumb tattoo, and they go out in the world with some stupid thing written on their forehead, it makes the whole industry look bad.
Right.
And it's like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you have to, like, I feel like people you should be harder on the people that are close to you.
Right.
Ideologically, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a sad place we're at now, where we have to be so concerned with that. Like, we have to be concerned, like, how is this going to be received? Yeah. You know, especially if you're in a position where you're well known, or the things you say or the things you do are going to be seen by lots of people. You know, it's like you run the risk of losing your job or whatever, you know, all these, you know, the higher levels, and people are getting death threats, and all based on their opinion.
Right. And
all
also,
based on that, just something like that.
Or something, you say something and then people will go back to you and hold you to that. But it's like, I say things every day that I like, if you ask me like 20 minutes later, I might like rethink it, you know?
Yes.
Like the person sometimes people talk out loud, or they, you know, you're having a conversation with someone and you put an idea forth, like as just like a point of discussion. And then you're going to be held to that like 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah. That's what I hate that. I hate when they try to bring something in from years and years and years ago, but it happens all the time. You look at right now with as we're gearing up for the next election, the presidential election, you have all these potential candidates from the Republican side to potentially run against Biden for the 2024. And, somebody will throw their hat in the ring, and they'll start to gain popularity because of the things they're saying right now. And people are like, oh, I like what this guy's doing, what this guy's saying. This is really cool. And then all of a sudden something comes out and says, oh, well, look what he said 15 years ago.
Right.
I'm like, I don't really care what he said 15 years ago. Does he still believe that today? That's what I want to know. If he still believes that, then we have a problem. But, you know,
I think the way the primary system is set up in this country is so weird. Because I remember when Ron Paul ran. Oh yeah, and he was getting all sorts of grassroots support. You know, and we were watching a primary on the news, and like the primary was over. I think he got like second or third place in the primary. And you on air, the people, the hosts of the show on air said they didn't want to talk to his people. They're looking for someone to interview. Like, oh, who's down there to interview? Oh, there's some Ron Paul people here. It's like, oh no, none of that Ron Paul stuff. But it's like, well, so you already have a person in mind that you know what I mean? Right. You already have your candidate in mind. And then like not the last election, but when the Democrat Party fixed their primary for Hillary. Oh, right. Right. They it's like out there, you know? Yeah. They didn't care what their voters wanted. They wanted her to be the candidate because they promised her, like, I don't know, whatever it was, because she stood behind Bill when he had his Monica Lewinsky thing, or then she stepped aside. Then she steps aside for Barack because they're probably like, oh, Barack's got less momentum. This he's lightning in a bottle. We'll get you a spot, and you for sure will be the candidate the next time. Right. And then they probably, that it's like it was already decided before the what's the point of even having the primary?
Well, and then they thought for sure that that Trump had no chance against her.
Right.
It was a shoo-in. Like, that's why everybody's so surprised when Trump won. They're like, what? Wait, hang on a second here.
Well, the thing is that the country, this is obviously like a generalization, but the country's it seems like it's divided into like three sections, You have like your hardcore, like the people that are what people think Trump supporters are. You know what I mean?
Right.
The hardcore, those people, there actually is people that are like that.
The Trump can do no wrong kind of people.
Right. A Trump can do, and maybe they're racist or maybe they're whatever their views are, but that's like that part of the pie. And then there's like the people in the middle. And then there's the people that are like the far left kind of people, And I think Trump realized that the Republicans weren't servicing the people, the far right people, they were kind of like using them in the way that like the Democrats use a lot of people in their voting,
Right.
So
he's kind of extremists on each side.
He's like, if I appeal to the extremist sides, then the people in the middle are still going to vote for me because there's no way they're voting for Hillary.
Right. Yeah.
So like, I know a lot of people that are reasonable, that do not like Trump.
Right.
They don't like him at all.
Right.
And they voted for him.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be forced to vote for somebody. They don't want to be forced to vote for someone that,
Yeah.
That's just been selected.
I think the thing with Trump and like, I've noticed especially through this show, as I talk to people and I kind of learn like almost like a mindset to where, like for me, the personal life of the candidate that I'm voting for really doesn't matter much to me. Yeah. Like I care. I'm not saying I don't care, but I care more about the policies and the things that he's going to do for the country, the things that are going to affect my life. Now, whether the guy, had a sexual assault case 20 years ago. Now, I'm not saying I'm okay with that. If he sexually assaulted a woman, that's totally wrong. And I'm against that. But that's not going to alter who I'm voting for as much as it would what he's going to do while he's in office. You see what I'm saying? But then there's other people on the other side that's all they care about.
Yeah.
They're like, I would never vote for a man who said this and did this and said, it's like,
well, the thing I think that was weird about the Trump presidency is they kind of overplayed their hand because I don't follow it. I don't follow it that closely anymore. But then you would see something on the news like, oh, Trump said this thing. Like, for instance, the good people on both sides thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the headline is Trump said that whatever those guys were, whatever those, he said that
Proud Boys or
he said that those were very good people and he supported them and he supported what they said. And then I'm just like, you kind of go, now I have to go do research and see if I have to go look into this and see if that's really what he said.
Yeah.
And then 9 times out of 10, you go and you see the tape of what he actually said, and it's not what he said.
Right.
It's not what he said. He said
almost always. Yeah.
He was talking about the general political. First of all, he condemned what they did. Like, fascism is wrong. White supremacy is wrong.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now you're making me defend someone that I don't like.
Right.
You're lying about someone that I don't like. Well, because obviously ever since the 80s, everyone's known that he's a con man or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think the thing that the people that are anti-Trump people don't realize is like, what if he wasn't Trump?
Right.
What if he was more like less baggage from the past?
Right.
And he was charismatic and, just less, he might appeal to his base. I guess a person that had the similar views of him may not appeal to his base as much if they weren't as off the cuff and wild.
Right.
But the viewpoint said he could win by 60-70%. If there was why can I not think of the word for a person running for president?
Candidate?
Yeah, if there was a candidate that had similar viewpoints to him and appealed to people in a similar way, but didn't have all the baggage of being Donald Trump,
right?
That it would be a landslide.
Well, I think it was.
They need to some of their more fringe views.
Mm-hmm.
They just gotta realize that people don't align with that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that with him it was twofold. Like, I think that because he's been in the public eye for so long. Right. Like, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Right. I mean, he had a reality show. He owns hotels. He's a big business guy. Everybody knows who he is. So that worked both in his favor and not, because one side is like, okay, we've been doing this whole president thing for so many years and all this stuff. And it's this and this. Look at this guy. He's not bought by anybody. He's already got all the money. He's saying how he's going to drain the swamp. He's going to, he's saying things that nobody's ever said. And I think there's a big group of people who's like, all right, let's try that guy. Let's do something different. But then the other side, it was bad for him because they're like, oh, we know all about this guy. Let's bring up all the dirt from his past. Look at what he said here. Look how many wives he's had. Look how many, all these things. And,
Well, it's like that clip from the debates that Dave Chappelle did a bit on. I don't know if you heard.
I've seen some of the Dave Chappelle clips. Yeah.
Yeah. Where he says because Hillary was giving him a hard time about not paying his taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, yeah, I don't pay my taxes. It's like, you guys wrote the tax law. So I go by the tax law and I end up not having to pay taxes. And you're not going to do anything about it because all your friends do the same thing. And it was just like, it was like a perfect thing to say. And then because he's like, yeah, I do know you guys. And
right.
I know that what you're saying right now is disingenuous.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think his mouth both gets him in trouble and doesn't, because he's very brilliant. I mean, he's an intelligent man. He knows how to say the right things, but then he also turns into like this 5-year-old. Yeah, when anybody insults him, like he's like, oh yeah, well, it's like he just starts. It's like, how old are you, man?
You're a pig.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He adds on he tags it with like something that.
Yeah.
Like good. Oh,
right. But there's a whole group of people in this country that loves when he does that.
Right.
And the rest of us are going, dude, what are you doing? Like, I firmly believe that the reason he's not president right now is because of that debate he did with Biden, where all he had to do was just let Biden keep talking. Biden would have shot himself in the foot all by himself. Yeah. But Trump had to keep cutting him off, interrupting him, shooting little one-liner shots out at him and acting like a little kid. And I was like, dude, that's what ruined it for you. Because as soon as that debate was over, you looked in the polls and you saw Biden's ratings went up and Trump's went down, and then he lost.
I think people just were like, I want normal.
Right.
I want even though the normal is bad or things that were bad about it are bad, but I don't want to. Right. It was too chaotic, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, chaotic and divisive. A lot of people saw Trump as a dividing character for our country, which I don't think that was his fault personally. I mean, I think he said lots of stupid things, of course. But yeah, so I mean, so if we get to 2024 and it's Trump and Biden, do you pick one of those two, or do you say I'm just not going to vote? Or I mean, like, how do you run there?
I probably just want to vote.
Just wouldn't vote.
To be honest.
You're like, I can't do either one of these two.
Yeah, no. I mean, as far as like the national politics, I don't know that. I guess it makes a difference, but I don't really. Yeah. Like I think the last person I voted for was Obama. But
it's been a while then. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I think, I mean, if there was a candidate that said like, I'm gonna put a federal ban on lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't force people to close their businesses.
Like COVID stuff, you mean?
Yeah, COVID stuff. You can't force people to close their businesses. You can't force people to stay in their homes.
Right.
Like that sort of thing. I think those like broader issues are like the things that like, cause I remember like there was a conversation at work and it's like a couple of younger guys were talking and like they were talking about Gavin Newsom.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that they were like, oh yeah, well, Gavin says we can't hang out with our families on 4th of July,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was kind of like, and I was just like, I don't want to cuss, but what I told him was like, why is it, who is he?
Right.
It's not his job.
Right.
It's not
then
his
it becomes
job.
like a monarchy. Like you're not the king of England,
For him to even think that he has a place to say things like that that should be a huge red flag for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Right. So if he puts his hat in the ring, you're not going to vote for him.
He's a Batman villain from casting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You just look at him and you go, okay,
Right.
I know I could tell if I encountered that person, I could tell exactly how they would treat me.
Right.
Like how he would treat a person just by looking at him,
Yeah. Well, then the hypocrisy of him too, because even during all those lockdowns, he's out at a big restaurant eating with his family.
Yeah.
I think so many people saw that, and there was all the big politics. Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh, you can't go out. There's no business." She's getting her hair done, It was like they wanted to impose all these rules on the country, but then at the same time, they're not following their own rules. It's like,
and his kids are going to school.
Yes, exactly.
Kids are going. I'm like, well, my kids can't go to school. And
right.
Then,
right.
Yeah.
I think people are just tired of it. And I mean, there's a few people that I would rather have run other than Trump.
Yeah.
That's kind of in the running right now. But the way the polls are looking,
yeah,
it looks like Trump's going to get it again, but then he's going to go against Biden. And then if that's my choices, I'm going Trump for sure because, I think Biden's just like,
I can't believe that they even ran him the last time.
I know.
Yeah.
But what's scarier to me than that is if, let's say he makes it to the end of his first term and then he gets reelected for the second term and then he dies first year of office in the second term. Look who takes over.
Yeah. Kamala.
That dude, she's the worst of all time.
Yeah.
Like Biden's bad in my opinion, but she's the worst. I would rather have Biden than her any day.
Yeah. I think Biden's like such an old, like an old school corrupt politician,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that like was shocking to me about his was when he said the thing when he was on the Breakfast Club or whatever that radio show was, when he was talking to what's his name? Charlemagne.
Oh, Charlemagne the God. Yeah.
Charlemagne the God. And he goes, well, if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's right out there. And that's racist.
Yeah. You don't have to mince. You don't have to rearrange his words to make it sound racist like they do with Trump.
Yeah. No.
It's right there.
Blatant. It's blatant.
Right.
I'm telling you.
It's horrible.
I was like, wow. And then the people are just kind of like, oh, well, and then I saw like a person was commenting on that thing and they're like, oh, everybody's out here pretending they don't know the difference between being black and being politically black. And I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why can't nothing make sense?
That's what I mean. Like, it's like, I know Trump says stupid things too, but then everybody pretends like Biden's never said anything stupid. It's like, oh my gosh, you bring up any press conference, any interview, anything, he's going to have something,
Right. And then, then that's the thing is like, you end up having to defend Trump, cause then people will say like, oh, Trump's kids are corrupt.
Yeah.
And blah stuff. And it's like, then like people have a problem with like, what aboutism?
What aboutism? Yeah.
Like, what about Hunter Biden?
Yeah.
You got a job in Ukraine working for an energy company.
Right.
What does he know about oil or energy or anything? How did he get, So that's the same. So if you're going to have a problem with it for Trump's kids, you got to have a problem with it for Biden's kids too.
You're supposed to.
Yeah.
But they don't. They turn a blind eye to a lot of that stuff. And then, and it probably goes both ways. There's people on the right that would be trying to turn a blind eye to the Trump stuff and just try to focus on Biden. And, that's why.
That's why, there's a lot of people that kind of like try to make it sound like Trump's a good guy and all that, And it's like, or if he, that he like aligns with Christian values and his behavior. And it's like, well, why are you saying that? You don't need to say that.
Right.
He doesn't need to be perfect.
Right.
To be your candidate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think they do that because for some reason, I think Trump had a big Christian support.
Right.
I think he still does, and I think it's mainly because of some of the policies that he says he stands for are Christian policies. Whether Trump claims to be a Christian or not,
right,
is irrelevant. He's saying things that Christians agree with more than Biden is. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, for
sure. I mean, that's kind of. I vote. I'm a policy voter. I'm not a party voter. I mean, I've said a million times if let's say they get rid of Biden or let's say even Biden, well, that's different because then I wouldn't trust him if he said it. But let's say that they put someone else in Biden's place to run for the Democrat side and he's running against Trump. And let's say the Democrat is saying more things that I agree with than Trump is. I'm going to vote for the Democrat.
Like say if like Tulsi Gabbard was running against Trump. Then,
right. Exactly. I mean, assuming she would stick to some of the guns that she's stuck to already, because a lot of times they get in there and then they start changing stuff around. Like, oh no, I never said that. Well, here's the video.
Well, there was an interview with Kamala Harris where she was on like Stephen Colbert or something, and he brought up all the horrible things that she said about Biden during the debates.
Yes, she called him a racist.
Yeah, and she goes, "Oh, that was a debate." Ha ha ha.
Yes.
And she like laughed it off. Like, oh, of course I'm going to say horrible things about him. It's a debate. So you're saying that you're So your honesty is situational.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And it's like she almost doesn't realize you just said that to the whole world. You're showing the whole world that you will say whatever you have to say to get what you want.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like with the vaccine, you know, you could, if you don't want to get the vaccine, you can just say, well, it's a Trump vaccine. You know, I'm not getting it because Joe Biden told me not to get it.
Right.
Because that's what that during the election cycle, that's what they were saying.
Yeah. Until he turned it and made it his vaccine.
Right.
And I was telling everybody they got to get 14 of them. You know, have you been triple, quadruple boosted yet? I mean, come on.
Oh, and herd immunity doesn't work anymore, even though that's what you were taught.
Right.
You know, all the way, every science class you ever had and every doctor you ever talked to says that, like, if you get sick from something and you get better, then that's the best immunity that you can get. But now that's not true anymore. Right.
Well, it's because we made Fauci God when it came to medical issues and whatever he said went, you know.
Yeah.
But someone came out even with him with like a couple months ago. Somebody had what do you call it, a montage, or when they were playing side by side clips of Fauci over like a 3-year period where he's literally saying one thing one month, saying the opposite the next month, another thing, and he's just going flip flopping back and forth. It's like, why do we trust this guy? You know?
Like, in the beginning, like, that's the thing, is like in the beginning of that whole thing, like to me, like the logic of the lockdown initially kind of made sense, you know, like, there's going to be a lot of cases, a lot of hospitalizations, but we need a couple weeks to prepare like temporary beds for, you know, so we can slow the spread, so we can
slow the spread.
So we can get ready to handle all this stuff. And then, so we lock down, and nobody built, I don't think they built any temporary additions to the hospitals or anything.
Well, they claim they did. In fact, there was all those videos of what they like built a whole hospital, like makeshift hospital, and then it was never used, and they tore it down. And
but
I mean, who knows if that's even true, right? I mean, it's hard to say, you know. Nobody's telling us the truth. And
then the whole thing about the lockdown is when there's protests, though, it's like, well, no, we'll suspend the lockdowns for this. So this is a more important issue than, you know, which was kind of, you know, that kind of clues you into there, right? The sincerity of the whole thing is like, oh, this other thing is now the thing that that's going to take precedent.
Yeah. And I think that because they're talking about how COVID's coming back, they're saying that the cases are rising. So they're trying to do the fear mongering, and there's talk of, you know, vaccinations again. There's talk of masking again. And most of the country, whether you're Republican or Democrat, right or left, doesn't matter. Most of us are like, no, not going to do it. You know, we're not doing that again, you know, unless you can show some kind of proof that it works, because all of us are like, no, it doesn't matter. Right. It's herd immunity.
If you can make it make sense.
Yes. You know? Right. Like, but that's why it worked in the beginning, because when COVID first happened, all of us were a little scared. I don't care who you are. We're like, we don't know what this is. We're seeing on the news, it's just these piles of bodies. People are dying left and right. We had no clue. But the problem was, as time went on and we learned more about it, the media and everyone else kept pushing that narrative like, oh, people are just dropping like flies. No, they're not.
Yeah. They didn't adjust. They got stuck in a route, and then they didn't change with the new information came in. They didn't change what they were doing.
Right.
They just kept going down the same path.
Yeah.
It became pretty clear that if you weren't unhealthy already, that you were going to probably most likely be okay.
Yeah. Right. But now why did they keep going with the same line?
And it's just like the thing about it, like the people that it affected the most negatively was like people with small businesses. Because you could go to Walmart and buy a bike, but the bike store had to be closed. You know what I mean? You could go into Walmart, put your mask on, buy a bike, and leave. But why couldn't you just so you couldn't? There was no like, oh, you have to just buy the food, essential foods or whatever. Right. And then so like bike stores closed or restaurants closed, but it's kind of I don't know.
Did you have a lot of restaurants in your area that shut down, still haven't opened back up?
Yeah.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
And it's almost always the mom and pop places. It's not the big chains, you know?
Yeah, it was a weird time.
Yeah, such a bummer. I wonder how much they're going to play that into the next election cycle.
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is like when you think about election cycles, like where that episode was positioned in the election cycle is kind of interesting.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And it's like they think we're all stupid or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because some people would say that, like, in Obama's presidency, there was a SARS outbreak, and they kind of that got downplayed. So, but it's like, so if this hadn't had all the media behind it, how much would you have noticed?
Exactly.
How much would you have noticed it, as opposed, because I think a lot of people were ignorant of like flu seasons and like respiratory infections and how they affect people.
Yeah.
Like a lot of old people, that's how they die.
Absolutely.
Year in, year out.
Yes.
Their immune systems, they're older.
Yeah.
Their immune system's depleted. They get a respiratory infection. They can't fight it off. And then they pass away.
Yeah. In fact, that's probably how most people end up. They get older and they can't handle that kind of thing. I remember I was having a conversation with a coworker when COVID was at its height and, whatever that means. But, there's a town, San Luis Obispo is about 30 miles from us. And they were talking about how there had been, I forgot the numbers, like 30 something people had died or something.
Right.
And my coworker was just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this many." I said, do you realize how many people a year die from the flu?
Yeah.
And she goes,
no one knows.
She had no idea. And we looked it up and I showed her, I said, "Look at," she goes, "Oh my gosh, I had no clue." Yeah. And it's like, so you just ask the question, like, how much impact would it have had on the world if the media wouldn't have been doing what they were doing with it? Well, the answer to that is it would have as much impact as it did if you just take all that out and you look at your own personal life and you say, how much did it affect me? Do I know anybody that was really, really sick from COVID? Yeah, I do. I know a few people. I even know a few people that died from COVID. Right? But do I know thousands and thousands of people that died from COVID? Was I walking around outside my town and just seeing dead bodies lying all over the place because everybody was dying from COVID? No, it was the same number of people that, let's say, you ask me every year, well, Ryan, do you know anybody that died this year? Yeah. I know quite a few people that died this year from different ways, If
it was treated as if it was just treated like it would have been a bad flu season.
Right.
It would have been like,
right.
Which those happen, like the flu.
Sure.
Respiratory illness deaths aren't like, it's not like a static line. It goes up and down. Mm-hmm. So it would have been, a bad year for that.
Right. Or they were even saying with the swine flu, when the swine flu was out, they were talking about how the vast majority of deaths from the swine flu were children.
Yeah.
Yet they never locked down the schools. They never forced masking in the schools. They never did any of that. They never forced vaccinations on children. None of that happened.
Right.
Even though that was primarily what it was killing. Well, COVID, obviously 90% of the people dying of COVID are elderly people. It's affecting the elderly. Yet we're locking down schools. We're forcing all this stuff on kids. It's like, what's really going on here? That doesn't make any sense,
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, but, were your kids affected? How old are your kids?
14 and 11.
Okay. You have two boys, right?
Yeah. 2 boys. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they had to struggle through home, working, doing school from home, like the remote learning thing,
Did they like that or did they hate that?
They didn't like it.
Okay.
It wasn't great. So even I use computers for work, I'm obviously not that savvy. I'm not like a total computer person, but I had a hard time figuring out how to upload their assignments and that kind of stuff,
Oh yeah.
Like sitting there working with them, I'm like, how is an 8-year-old or however old my youngest son was, I think he was like 8 at that time. Like, how is he supposed to figure this out,
Right.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. And I also think that I don't know. I feel like if I was an elderly person, I would like to think that if I was at that age during that time period and you told me that my grandkids going to come see me because they might get me sick, I'd be like, I want to see my grandkids. I don't care.
Absolutely.
Bring them over. Let them, let them spit in my face. I don't I want to see my grandkids. I don't want to, I'm not going to not going to not spend time with, the most important people in my life because because they might potentially get me sick when, what am I going to, it didn't seem.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
Logic to it.
Yeah. That's all quality of life versus quantity of life. It's like, do you want to live to be 100 years old, living by yourself in a house and never going outside? Or do you want to live to be 70 and enjoy yourself, And
then the thing too about it, the points that I always thought were interesting was that it's, when has the spread of a respiratory illness ever been stopped?
Right.
And then that's why the common cold's so pervasive because you can get it and you can walk around with it and spread it.
Yeah.
So if there's a respiratory illness that kills you, that doesn't bode well evolutionarily for that respiratory illness.
Right.
Because it needs you up and walking around and being around other, because people are social animals, socialize. That's why those illnesses spread. It's part of being a human being.
Right.
You're going to get upper respiratory infections.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're going to avoid that, like, of course, if we all lived in a bubble, if we stayed inside and everybody had a bubble and, no one ever had any, like, how horrible would that be?
Right.
And then if that makes it so that everybody could live, why is that good?
Yeah. Cause that's not living.
That's not living.
Right.
And also, think about all the other things that we do every day that are horribly dangerous, like operating a motor vehicle,
Yeah.
like we don't, like, out of the thing, avoiding basic human things for a safety reason, it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Right. Did it affect your job at all? The whole COVID thing?
No, I work for a wine company, so we were considered necessary.
I love it.
We went right back. I remember, so they sent an email at work and they were like, when they did the lockdown, it's like, they issued a lockdown. Everybody stay home tomorrow and be with your families, whatever. So I was in line at the Rouse, the next day, waiting in line to get in because you only have a certain amount of people in at a time. So I was getting groceries and the time to be at work gets there and I get a phone call from my boss and he's like, where you at? I was like, I'm getting groceries. Like, I thought you said, don't come to work today. He's like, no, not you. You need to come in. So we did like a thing. We did a thing where we would like one person, cause it's a real small company. So one person would work one day, one person would work the next day, and then so you'd be there by yourself working, but then the work started piling up. And then me and the other guys were just like, well, let's just come to work. Like, it's a small, we're not being exposed to that many people. Like we got stuff to do. It doesn't really make sense.
Did you like deliveries or stocking or like, what do you?
I manage the warehouse.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a lot of like shipping and receiving stuff.
Okay. I applied for a job just like that. I didn't get it, but it was exactly that. It was supervising a warehouse for a wine company where they did all the forklift drivers, and I have to get everything in the right places and make orders and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was doing magazines, which I don't know if you remember what a magazine is, but
yeah, I do. Yes.
That was like that seemed like a poor idea in hindsight, like, my career is going to be in magazines. And then it doesn't even exist anymore. So funny.
That's like being a VHS tape, guy or something,
Right.
That's awesome.
That's funny. Cause I had an idea. Like I was like, it'd be a kind of a cool thing to collect would be, unopened packages of blank cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Cause do you have like a memory in your head of what certain brands of cassette tapes looked like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like TDKs or Memorex.
Memorex. Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to have but
yeah.
Those weird thoughts.
Oh man. All right. So to finish out the politics section, what would you say is the word or the most important issue facing our country?
I think the most important issue, just like politically overall, is that people have a disregard for or a lack of appreciation for like the concept of civilization.
Okay.
And what civilization means. What are the basics of civilization? What are the things that need to be in place in order to have like a civilized society?
Mm-hmm.
For like safe, like, so you have like property rights, you can't steal, like in an uncivilized society. If I'm more powerful than you, I can come to your house and I can take all your stuff, and you have no recourse.
Right.
Right. So people will say things like, oh, we should defund this or defund that. And it's like, you're not understanding like how people act in uncivilized society, what human nature is, and how dangerous it is to do things like allow people to steal.
Right.
Even though if it's from a huge corporation and, like you live in California. So like the shoplifting thing where people can just go into, they can go into a store and they can take whatever they want. And like, it's not hurting the company. Yeah. Like CVS, Walgreens, they have insurance. Mm-hmm. Walmart they have insurance. I understand that you're not hurting and it's not like stealing, but it's stealing.
Yeah. Like
there's things that are like baselines of civilization that if we're going to live in a civilized society, you have to be cognizant of,
Yeah.
Like and then I think people think that like like, so if the power, if we live in Southern California, it's like a desert area. So we don't have any natural water. So if there's like, say if there's like a natural disaster and then there's no water and no electricity for 2 weeks and you're just stuck here, then you're in an uncivilized society. And like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I think that those things, those are like that's a basic, I think that's like a basic thing, but I think that that's like the baseline of what you should think about. Like, I think people have like, they're super right about something and they're 100% sure about an issue. And they have this like real strident outlook on what they think should happen in a certain situation. But it's like, you got to understand that like there needs to be certain things.
Right.
Tolerance can only go, like, tolerance is a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a luxury. Like, if you're allowed to, but like if you live next door to someone that's doing something that you can't tolerate, you have to have a way to stop them from doing that, you know?
Right. And that's the whole thing, right? Where they say like, you know, people should be allowed to do whatever they want. You know, free society, do whatever you want. It's like, yeah, but what happens when what they want to do is to you, or is something that's going to affect you in some way? You know, that's why all the government officials who are trying to push this whole no guns thing and the whole argument against that is like, well, when you go out places, congressperson, who do you have around you? Oh, you have armed guards. Why? Right. You know, or why do you have a lock on your door? Why do you have, well, because there's bad people in the world.
Right.
And you need to prevent them from doing things to you and your family, right? It's just the way it is, you know?
And it's like, well, in that situation, I'll just call the cops. It's like, well, what if, you know, if they can't get there in time? Or what if the cops aren't, you know, we're in some situation where the cops aren't available?
Yeah, what if all the cops keep quitting because every time they do their job, they're accused of something and they get fired?
Right.
You know, so, I mean, our police numbers are dwindling because of that, especially in California.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is like, there's so many people that know exactly how a police officer should handle a situation. It's like, well, then you're doing your society a disservice by not becoming a cop then.
Yeah.
If you know exactly how all the situations should be handled and exactly how people should be treated,
right? That
your life's calling is to be a law enforcement officer. You should go do that.
And that's not for everybody.
It's like, I couldn't be a cop.
Me neither. No way, man.
I would just not have and then also like from the other side, like I know what my interactions with police have been as the person that I am. So if you tell me that situation is different, if you're African American, I have no way to argue that because I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you have to apply that same logic to the police officer, because if you're not a cop, you don't know what it's like to be in a situation where you're dealing with somebody that like might do something that you have to, you know, you might not be able to go home.
Right.
And also I do have experience with having a job, and I know that like I want my day at work to go smoothly. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to do a bunch of extra paperwork.
Right.
You know? I'm not waiting for some guy to do something crazy so I can shoot him if I'm a cop. You know? It doesn't make sense. Like,
well, that's what I've always said.
And it's also like the thing too is like if it's, I don't know, if it's systemic, then why do they lose their jobs and they get tried for murder? Then that's a weird system.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, see, and that's always my argument, and that's what people need to understand. When I say I don't believe the country is systemically racist, I'm not saying I don't think there's no racist people.
Right.
You know, when I say that I think most cops are not racist, I'm not saying there are no racist cops. I'm sure there are. I mean, there's plenty of racism in the country, but when people say systemic, we're talking about like the way it was back in the 30s, the 40s. You know, you had bathrooms for black people and bathrooms for white people. You had actual things like laws against you can't eat at this restaurant because of what you look like.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's the good thing of the thing that's a progress is like cameras and stuff. I think that like, you know, any cop should have like a camera on them, and then the whole interaction, and then a person that's being detained by a cop should be able to film it or have someone near them film it. And then whatever the situation, you know, and then obviously like have laws that are in place, like how things should go.
Right.
And then if, you know, then the person like they have their day in court and they show like, this is what happened. This is how this person treated me.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's clear there's evidence.
Right.
And so like, I think that's a good thing that's happened
Yeah. But the problem too, though, is like you see, like when we see this in a lot of the more publicized cases of quote unquote police brutality, is like the media decides which camera angles, which clips they're going to show you. And it's like they're creating this narrative. It's like, why are you doing that?
Right.
Show the whole story, you know, or don't only focus on certain kinds of crime. Don't only focus on, it's like they make certain stories national news stories because of the players involved, right? Yeah. It's like this same thing happened a week ago, but the roles were reversed and nobody's heard of this case. Well, why? It's this exact same scenario, except the races of the people are reversed or the gender of the people reversed or whatever the case is. It's like, why are you guys doing this?
Yeah.
You know, and then they convince all of America to believe that something happened that didn't. And by the time the truth comes out, everybody's already made up their mind and they want to hang this guy because, or whatever, they want to, you know, they want him in prison.
Yeah. Or a circumstance will come up and they'll say, oh, this person was unarmed. And then it turns out that they were armed, but they don't go back and they don't issue a correction to say, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, even then, like coming from the cop's perspective, right? If you have your gun trained on somebody and they're reaching for their glove box and you tell them to put their hands on the steering wheel and they keep going for their glove box, put your hand on the steering wheel, they keep going for it's like, what are you going to do? Wait for him to pull the gun out of the thing and then shoot you and you're dead? So then the guy shoots him and then they find out later, oh, there was no gun in the glove box. So somehow now the cop is guilty. It's like, no, like put your hands on the steering wheel. It's very simple, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I always tell my kids that. I said, I don't care if you're doing something wrong or not. Let's say you're totally innocent. You do whatever that cop tells you to do. If he's going to mistreat you, then we'll deal with that later. Right? Like, don't go getting yourself shot, you know?
And that's also kind of a thing that I think it's kind of a racist way of thinking, is that to think that certain people aren't capable of doing that because of some cultural or whatever, you know, like, no, you're making someone less than for your own political, you know, like you're holding them to a lower standard.
Yes.
That's racist.
Right.
I in my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. Do you remember, Tomas?
Yeah.
He used to call you Yetami.
Yeah. We wrote a song about that guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With which band?
That was a band called the Weatherbees.
Oh, you were in a different band. Was it after the other two?
Yeah, it was kind of in the middle, but I remember the lyrics were like, "Thank you for calling Little Caesars Ramona. This is Tomas speaking." The whole song is about it, but it was so funny because we're used to he'd make you do the long speech, you know?
Yeah.
So and then I remember he was actually a pretty nice guy, but I remember he drove all the way from Rosarito to Ramona to work, which I don't know if you know if they're familiar with where that is, but that's like a 2-hour drive every day for.
Dang, dude.
And I was like, and I remember he was like, oh, there was a car for sale on the side of in that dirt lot behind the Little Caesars.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, Jeremy, there's a van over there for like $1,000. And I was like, a van? Oh, that's cool, man. He's, I'm going to buy this van. And he kept talking about this van and he's like, come look at it with me. And I walked over there to look at it with him and it was a Tercel station wagon.
Oh yeah.
Like, Tomas, this isn't a van. This is a station wagon. But he was like, oh, I'm going to buy this thing. And like,
oh man.
That place
I always felt bad for him because there was that other guy, Edwin?
Yeah, not my favorite.
Yeah, that guy was a jerk.
He was the guy that would come and visit or whatever. He was like the regional manager or whatever, but he was always so mean to Tomas, man. He was always like, well, yeah, when I became like the supervisor manager guy, like one day he came in and the drawer was off like $8 and he told me to like fire this girl. They fire her. She was on the thing last night. Fire her. It's $8 short.
No way.
I'm like, I'm not going to, what are you talking about? And then he like jumped up and put me in a headlock.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm serious. He's like a smaller guy, and I'm kind of tall, but he like jumped up and put me in a headlock, and I was like, "What is going on? Like, why?" Dude, it was odd. That was a really weird, really weird working thing. I don't know if you were still working there, but there was a girl that worked there, and she had a boyfriend that was in jail or something, and she wanted a day off or something, or I wanted to give her the day off. There's some issue with her, and then the police call me when I'm like working by myself at night in Little Caesar, and they go, so and so was just released from prison, and we have information that he was going to come hurt you, but we don't know anything for sure.
Oh my gosh, dude, really?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? They're like, oh, well, just if he comes by, just call us if he comes by. And he was like a gangster guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But we like a couple weeks later, him and her walk by, and he like does like handgun at me, like, you know, like with his hand to like as we're walking by, and I was like, what? I don't even know what is going on here. But do you remember? Do you draw?
Do I draw?
Do you draw?
Not really.
Okay, but do you remember those kids that there's a couple kids that would come into the Little Caesars and open the thing, and they would just steal drinks and like walk out with them? Do you remember that at all?
No.
It was like a group of little kids, and then someone drew like one of the people drew like a "Don't let these guys in here" thing, and he drew like little pictures of the kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought it was you, but maybe I must have.
No, I can't draw to save my life. I'm lucky if I can draw stick figures.
Yeah.
God, dude, dang, man, that's scary. But he never did anything to you?
No, he never did anything. He just walked by and like laughed, and I was like, oh man, like scared the crap out of me. Cause I was scared.
After they had promoted you to manager or assistant manager, whatever you were.
Yeah.
I don't think I worked there very long after that.
Did you work? How long did you work at the new? You didn't work at the new because they made a new one.
Wait. No, yes, I did because they moved over by Kmart. Yeah.
Kmart,
next door. Because remember, I was working at Subway in the daytime. And Little Caesars at night. I just walk over and change my shirt on the way over.
Get a Veggie Delight.
Yep.
So I remember you talked me into being a vegetarian for I
remember that.
A few months. And then I remember you going like, why are you like, then I felt like sick. I felt like crap or whatever. And you're like, why are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know, man, just to feel better. He's like, well, you don't look better.
Yeah, you look pretty sickly, homie.
Yeah, maybe you should eat some.
Well, didn't you go vegan?
I had in the worst way possible.
I feel like you used to make pizzas there and you wouldn't put cheese on it.
Yeah.
You just do sauce and vegetables.
Sauce and vegetables, yeah.
Yeah.
In the worst, like with no nutritional information whatsoever, like trying to do something, and I just got, sick. Just like eating bean burritos and.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Oh man.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah, I was at the new one for a while. I don't remember how long that was, but because I want to say when I started at the one over there by McDonald's on the other side where they were when I started there, I was only there for a couple months before they.
Yeah, I think you were right there, right in the middle of that thing. You know when they tore that place down, all the mice that they found in the roof.
Do you remember?
Yeah, do you want to hear like a really disgusting story about that place?
I might know it. Was it the
you might want to
dough?
You might want to cut this out, but
was it the dough presser?
Yeah, so the dough
I was
presser,
there.
The sheeter. Yeah. So the sheeter thing,
and all the blood came out.
No, yeah. Remember, I was going to you. You would open it at the end of the night, so it would be on all day, make like sheeting pizzas.
Yeah,
and then at the end of the night, you open it up and reach your hand up there and start pulling out the dough pieces. I remember I reached up there to pull out the dough piece, and then I pulled my hand out, and it wasn't coming out, and I pulled my hand out, and there was blood all over my hand. And so like every pizza we made that day passed by the dead body of a mouse. It was the most. So obviously what happened. So it had to have been sitting on the rollers, the little 2-pin roller things. It had to have been sitting there when the thing got turned on in the morning. So the rollers started going and just went, and it just got stuck there all day. So like I guess the health inspector never came by that place.
Oh my gosh,
it was
dude!
So vile.
Hey, what was the other guy? The daytime manager there.
Oh, Aaron. Yeah. That guy was he was a wild guy. He was.
Where is that guy still around? You ever talked to him anymore?
I haven't talked to him since then.
Oh man, because he was quite a bit older than us, I think.
Yeah, he was a little bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Dude, that was so funny. Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, that was.
Man,
it's such a wild.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, there were some interesting people worked at that place.
Yeah.
And there was that one white girl who was really pretty and like all the guys liked her, but she claimed she only would date Mexicans. I forgot her name. I forgot what her name was.
Her name was Tiffany.
No, not Tiffany. I remember Tiffany. Tiffany Dawkin.
Yeah.
I remember her.
She told me her uncle was Don Dawkin from Dawkin, but
that's right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but she
probably
was cool.
Not. Yeah, I remember that. No, this was a different girl. She was a brunette.
Oh, I think that's probably Naomi.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's her name. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. She said she only dated Mexican guys. Wow.
Yeah. That was a wild job.
Yeah. Fun times, man. So, all right. Well, let's jump into some spiritual talk. So why don't you, let's just start with the idea of God.
All right.
In your opinion, is there a God? Is there no God? Are you an atheist? Are you agnostic? Are you a believer?
Definitely not an atheist.
Okay.
I don't think that's not I don't know.
Okay.
It seems like a weird viewpoint to me.
How come?
No, you know for sure that there's no God?
Right. Because how do you,
How do you know for sure that there's no
How
God?
do you prove that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my thought, is, to me, rational to me is that God has to be everything.
You mean literally everything?
Literally everything. Because
okay.
To me, I think of it as like the creative force, right?
Okay.
I think of if there's a God and God's a being that exists in some material, in some material plane outside of our material plane, then that's what created that. You know what I mean? It seems like a thing. It seems like a thing that would continue to go back. Okay, well, so if God's a kid creating an ant farm, then what's beyond that? What's the next level behind that? But I do believe in I guess I would say a creative force in the not the force like Star Wars, but you know what I mean. But
yeah,
I believe in a force, like an energy force
kind of thing.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's a real thing. I think it's a positive thing.
Okay.
Because I think that I think this is what we're doing now is the individuated experience, and that's the only that's God seeing Himself, creating something in His image, so that thing can experience what He experiences as far as consciousness and stuff. So I think. So
you believe that humans are created in His image?
Yeah.
But do you think everything is created in His image, or just humans?
I would say everything.
Everything.
I think humans are supernatural.
Okay.
In the sense that it's outside of what you would consider to be nature.
So you consider humans on a different level than say plants and animals and that kind of thing. Okay.
Well, I think that to me, this might get into the weird place, but to me, the story of the story of Adam and Eve is that story of humans separating themselves from nature by way of agriculture, by way of civilization, by way of, because they were the first, when we decided to manipulate our environment, we were saying that nature wasn't, God or the, whatever it is, gave us nature. And this is the way you can live in line with nature. And obviously people don't do that anymore. They stopped doing that. So I think that the fall was, okay, well, if you're going to do this stuff, if you're going to manipulate your environment, if you're going to create cities and farms and you're going to do your own thing, then now you have the responsibility to be the stewards of what you're doing. Now that comes with responsibility, because if a grizzly bear eats its cub, you don't judge that grizzly bear on a moral basis because it's nature, right?
Right. It's animalistic.
It's animal. So people are set, but if a person eats their, obviously that's, people are held to a higher standard because they have a different level of responsibility, I think, cosmically.
Right.
But as far as it, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just say, so the fall, what you're calling the fall, you're not saying it was Adam and Eve eating a fruit. You're saying it was later on when they decided to.
Well, I think I guess I don't know how you would say it, but allegorically, the fruit, the thing that the disobedience that they did was that they stepped outside of. So if it's the idea is that there's hunter-gatherer tribes, and the hunters go out and they get the meat, and then the gatherer portion of the tribe goes and finds the seeds, the plants that they can eat, and the stuff that they can eat,
right.
The foraging, right?
Yeah, finds the burger buns to put the burgers on.
Yeah.
The condiments. Let's find the mustard and the ketchup and the.
But I'm saying, so the impetus for agriculture is kind of oh wait, so these little tiny plants grow into the bigger plants that we get the stuff from.
Right.
And you kind of, I'm assuming that humans probably figured that out, but then I would say that that's stepping outside of nature. You're manipulating nature for your own needs. So, that could be completely, I'm not a biblical scholar, but do you understand?
Well, I guess I want to press it. I'm trying to understand specifically what you mean. So when you're seeing like the allegorical fall with Adam and Eve,
is civilization.
Okay, so like, but like, what specifically are they doing to, like, they're stepping outside of nature and doing what exactly?
Farming.
Oh, like on a grand scale?
Yeah, just like instead of just like, oh, I woke up today, I'm in nature, I'm going to go pick berries off this bush. Okay. Oh, no, now I figured out how those berries come about, so I'm going to put the seeds in the ground, I'm going to take care of the plant, then I'm going to have like a surplus of food, then I'm going to build a wall around, I'm going to build a wall around our village, and other people, this is now my property. I'm not just living I'm not living off the land anymore. Right.
It's similar to like when you look at early farmland. Back in the day, you'd have, let's say you had a guy that had a cow live next to a farm, that they had corn crops, and then they would barter and they would share with each other. And then the whole town had some of everything. But that at some point, somebody decided, hey, I can mass produce milk. I can mass produce corn. I can mass produce vegetables, all this kind of stuff. And I can start selling it across the country, and I can become a billionaire. Right. So it's like, how can I produce way more than I need for my family or my little township? And I want to become a billionaire. Right. So that's greed, right?
Yeah. So and obviously like that's where like a lot of, if you're in a tribe and you're living all together and living off the land, and like the Garden of Eden, that's like an idyllic place. Right.
Right.
So then you're taken out of that. And then now you're susceptible to the responsibilities of being a human being.
So do you think this energy force, is that what you call it, energy force, or am I making that up?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. Do you think that like stuck people, the first people, into that perfect paradise on purpose, and then people made the decision to do the wrong things, and then that's why everything got screwed up? Is that kind of where you're looking at?
I don't really necessarily look at it as being the wrong things. I think of it more of like a teenager. Like if you have a teenager living in your house and they have ideas about how they want to do things, you set them up with a way of living that they have, right? They're protected, they're safe. And then they get to a certain point where they're like, no, we want to do this, or we want to do that. It's like, well, that comes with a lot of responsibilities. And, so now if you're outside of that, you need to be like the steward of, the steward of the creation.
Right. But there could be a wrong, like even in that scenario, let's say you raise your kids and you tell them this is the right way to live. And let's say our kids go out in the world and they decide to become heroin addicts. Right. We would say, well, that's wrong, right? That's a wrong decision. Even though they're adults, they have the right to make that decision. It's still a wrong decision, right? You'd agree with that? Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's why I think that what happened was supposed to happen. I think that humans are they're more interesting and more capable and more, like I've had this discussion with people that say that dogs are their favorite animals. Yeah. Like, no, the people are the best animals. We made dog, your dog loves you because we forced your dog to love you. Right. You know what I mean? Domesticated them. Yeah. You got to be people. Yeah. What's your favorite book that was written by a dog? Yeah. Like not too many. People are amazing. Like people. Yeah. I think people are great, and I think they're also capable of horrible things. Yeah. So I think that's the responsibility. Like, you have like you have sovereignty as a person, or the ability to make decisions, free will. Right. So you're capable of the most amazing things, but you're also capable of the most horrible things. Yeah. It's two sides on the same coin. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's not, But as far as like when they talk about, they've done some pretty interesting studies in the last couple of years about kind of the value of life versus animals and humans, and people say dogs are their favorite animal, right? Because everybody's got a dog. We all love dogs, but they did something where they said, well, if there's a swimming pool and your dog is drowning and your neighbor is drowning that you don't know, let's say you waved at him a couple times, but he's not your friend, right? You don't love him, you don't know him, right? And you can only save one of those two things. Most of the people, like 95% of the people, said they'd save their dog. Really? Yeah. That's amazing. It's fascinating. And I myself have talked to people. I've talked to people right in front of me that will tell me that they would save their dog. But that's because they're like, I don't know that guy. But the thing is, it's a diminishment of
human experience because a dog doesn't expect anything from you.
Right.
Because I'm sure that John Wayne Gacy had a dog that loved him.
Yeah.
A dog, people, if you think dogs are your favorite animal, you expect people to not judge you.
Right.
It's a childish way of being, like,
yeah.
Oh, my dog loves me. No matter what happens, no matter what I do, my dog always loves me. It's like, that's not good.
Right.
It's not good. And it's also like when people have some people love their dogs before they have kids, and they'll be like,
yeah.
Oh, they'll say like, what's having kids like? I'm like, well, imagine if after 2 or 3 years, your dog starts talking to you.
Yeah. Right.
Imagine how much you love,
yeah.
Your dog stays at like the 6 to 10 month stage for its whole existence. A kid starts having ideas and talking to you and saying hysterical things. Like some of the funniest things I've ever heard were from my kids, I don't know if you remember what I look like, but I'm very skinny,
Yeah.
Well, I was very skinny. Now I'm fat.
Yeah.
But I used to be skinny. And I have a big head.
Yeah.
So I was getting like when my youngest son was in, he was in preschool, and like a thermos where the thermos has a straw, and then the thermos top on top,
Yeah.
He's 3 years old. He walks up to me and goes, "Who does this look like to you?" It's like making fun of me at like 3 years old. And I was like, that's the most hysterical thing I've ever heard. And I was like, but it's like your dog's not going to do that.
That is so funny.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people will say, the dog's like a member of the family, the cat's like a member of the family or whatever. And I don't have any, I love animals. I've always been an animal lover. I love pets. My wife, not so much. Like if it was up to me, we'd have a lot more pets than we do. But I definitely see the value of human life much more than an animal. Like I would rescue any human before I would rescue any animal. I really would. Like even there could be an enemy of mine drowning in the pool. And if I was only able to save one, it'd be the human, just because I value human life more than animal life. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be sad that my dog died, but if I have a choice to make and I have to choose one of them, then, I'm going to go with the human. But, so do you see this God character, this energy, character as having intelligence?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so. I would say that's like a thing when people talk about like intelligent design versus evolution. To me, it's like, why not both?
Okay.
Everything is a process. If you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you're the creator of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but there's a process, Right. The two things they're not mutually exclusive.
Right. And I don't think they have to be either. I think.
And also I think if the being exists outside of time, then everything happens. Then if time's an illusion created by motion, and the creator of the universe exists outside of that time, then everything that happens at the same time.
To him, yes.
Yeah, to him, in that sense. So if so you might think that, billions of years of evolution, that makes it not a process, but no, that's not necessarily why.
Right.
Well,
and I don't believe in evolution, but I could much more align myself up with the idea of God or something intelligent designer, starting evolution in motion than I can this idea of just spontaneously arising life that had no direction, no guide, no nothing, just boom, there it is. Yeah. And that somehow eventually became people with all this vast, thinking and everything, motion.
Well, then you get into like the philosophical side of it. Then if that's the case, then why does anything matter?
If what's the case?
If it's just random, if it just happens.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Why does anything matter?
Exactly.
It's like, why, why are certain behaviors rewarded?
Right.
And certain behaviors not rewarded,
Right.
When I think about things that are like the concept of heaven and hell, if you're living in a hellish way, hell is here.
Yeah.
For you, right? You're not the people, like most people that are good people, the nice people, they have better, they have better lives.
On Earth.
On Earth.
Yeah.
I think they have better relationships with people. Cause when I was, probably when you knew me, I was pretty like needy and like bitter and like selfish,
Mm.
when I think back on the time of my life, I was a very selfish person. but that makes your life worse. The way that you make your life better is, following like what are considered like the good virtues,
Right.
In my mind, it's like,
but see, even that can be construed though, because if someone, I might say, oh, this is a good virtue, and someone else might say, no, it's not. I don't like, that's not a good virtue.
Yeah. But I'm saying like, what things do you think what virtues are rewarded cosmically? You know what I mean?
Like universally, like everything, like. But
just like in your life, like if you're a parent, if you're horrible to your kids and they can't wait to move out of your house and they never want to see you again once they move out,
right.
That's a bad thing. You want your kids to respect you and like love, and you want them like, oh, I can't wait to take you to see Grandpa Ryan on Christmas. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Those are the things that you want to have happen. So,
But you could also have kids leave your house because they don't like some of the rules you've given them.
Right.
And those rules are good rules.
Yeah.
But then for a time, the kid hates you because of that. And maybe he moves out and he thinks he wants to get away from you and everything sucks here and I'm gone.
But I'm sure
they come back and they're like, oh, I was wrong.
I'm sure that you probably noticed this as you've gotten older, but when that stuff happens, when the person gets on track and they get their lives together and they go back to their parents, they have an even closer relationship with the people than they do. They have a closer bond with their parents than they do with the people that had perfect parents that loved them, or that they never had any problem with them.
Yeah.
I think that kids respond to the same parenting in two different ways. There's some, I think, well, I don't know if like when my kids were born, they had personalities right out of the, like in the operating room, their different personalities were right there. You know what I mean? My first son, when he was born, they were both born by C-section because my wife had like a placenta previa thing.
Okay.
Which is like the placenta goes over the birth canal.
Oh.
So like I talked to the doctor. I'm like, so what would happen if this was 1850? And she's like, they both die. So I was like, wow. So they had to schedule a C-section. I'm like, and I felt like after that, I was like so amazed by like this lady that like, and it was like, it's her regular everyday job, it's like, you saved two people's lives.
Right.
And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go have lunch now. But anyways, when he was born, he was so quiet and he didn't cry. They were worried about him not crying,
Right.
So they were like, oh, he's not crying. This is and he was just like real quiet, like, kind of a lazy baby. Like, and then so I'm like, oh, I guess that's how babies are. And then my second son is born and they take him out and he's like screaming and peeing and like going to the bathroom all over the nurses. And we're like, oh, well, this is a different stress. So yeah, right out of the box, completely different.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, but I mean, I know that like our oldest is going to be 25 next month, and she's married now. She's living down in the LA area. And we had times when in her teenage years where it was rough. She didn't like some of the restrictions we were giving her and the things we were saying. But now as an adult that's looking at potentially having her own children in the next couple of years, she says things like, oh, you guys were right. Or, it doesn't mean everything. She doesn't agree with everything that we did, but there's a lot of stuff that she was fighting us on. And she's like, no, I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you restricted me from that, or you told me that, it's like, it's a maturity thing, I think, I mean, I think none of us like to be told no and what to do. And especially when you're young, in the thing, but, so this God, intelligent designer is intelligent. Does he care about us, or does it care about us in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think if you go through like wisdom that's been handed, like I guess you would say, whatever, religious wisdom of different strains, I guess you would say. But I think, and philosophical, because I think philosophy is like, I kind of think of it as religion. I think of religion as like philosophy for how you should live your life.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that the things that that information, the way that the path to having a good life is kind of laid out in all of that stuff, I would say.
Okay.
So I think that and then the things that, like we were saying before, like I think the things that are rewarded are things that make you a better person.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. But like, what about things like right now, most of the world would say that something like pedophilia is wrong, right? Most of us would agree, but the pedophile, he doesn't agree with that. He thinks this makes me happy. This is how I get my joy. This is the whole meaning behind my whole life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But
so how do we tell him that he's wrong? Is it just based on the majority of the people that think that now? Like, I'd say
it'd be based on the results that life. What are the positive results that life would give you? Right.
Okay.
And if you have that thought and you deny that thought and you act in accordance with what most people think of would be the things that you do to have a good life, because that's a selfish impulse.
Yeah.
I don't care about this child. I don't care about what I'm going to do affects this child. All I care about is how this is going to make me feel.
Right.
And it's going to be a impulsive moment, but it's so I would say that person, yeah, I guess like evil is like a weird way to put it, but yeah, that's an evil thing. And I don't necessarily think, once you act on it, you're beyond reproach. You know what I mean? You're beyond you've crossed over into a place where you're just outside of the human, whatever you would say it.
Like that person wouldn't be considered a human. They've gone beyond to where they've forfeited their rights as a.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Whatever your feelings are on the death penalty or that kind of stuff. But I think there's certain things where if we're going to live in a society with people, there's going to have to be, we can't tolerate. That's the sort of things that you can't tolerate,
Yeah. Are there things, I know I picked a subject that's pretty universally frowned on, but there's probably certain things that are more, could go either or.
More on
like sex outside of marriage, right? There's people, both religious and not, that would say, no, that's, there's been whole books written even by atheists that will say that sex between two people in a marriage relationship is the only healthy way for that to be happening. And they talk about all the problems with the dating scene and the hookup culture and all this kind of stuff. But then there's other people that would say, no, what are you talking about? I do that all the time. Every weekend I sleep with 4 different people and I love my life. I'm happy as can be. And the people I'm sleeping with are happy as can be too, so.
Well, yeah, then you're not going to be able to establish like as good of a pair bond with the person that when you eventually decide to, well, that's like the thing. It's just like any kind of relationship, like the duration of how long you can't replace that. You can't replace being friends with someone. If I make a friend tomorrow, that friend is never going to be the same as the friend that I made when I was 13. You know what I mean? So I would say
how so, like because you've known that person longer.
I've known that person that long. I have that history with that person. There's a bond that's built there to where it's like that can't be, can't really be replaced.
Right.
So I would say and I think I think the thing with people could do whatever they want, but there's a reason why people get married and have kids and have a family and stay with that woman. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of different reasons. It's obviously the best case scenario. There's not a lot of happy old 60-year-old bachelors that are I'm still out there, man. Well, it's like the Will Ferrell in that the Wedding Crashers, right?
Yeah.
He's like, Mom, give me some OJ or whatever. He's still living the life that everybody thought they wanted when they were 15 or 16.
Right.
But now it's pathetic,
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Is the age, I think, is a good point, because I was just about to say, as you first started saying that, there's all kinds of TikTok videos and YouTubes of these usually 20-something, maybe early 30s women who are talking about how they've swore off men and relationships and they're so much happier without it. And I'm doing my own thing and I'm going my own way and I'm so much happier for it. Yeah. And we're like, nah, I don't know. Talk to me when you're 50. Are you still going to be happy, or?
That's how I thought in my 20s. I didn't. You had your children at a young age, right?
I was 20 when my first was born.
Yeah. So I was 33.
Okay.
So you go through. You kind of think oh, I don't want the responsibility, and I don't want to. I've got all this other stuff that I want to do. But then, as you get older, you start seeing that what is that life going to be?
Mm-hmm.
What is that life going to be when I'm 70?
Right.
You can be close with your uncles or you can be close with your cousins, but it's not the same as,
right.
It's not the same as kids. So yeah, I think that what's considered I think a lot of times people, if you're progressive, if you're progressive in your thought, you don't just allow for the other thing being okay. You have to make the thing that you're progressing away from bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like culturally some people, well, it's like a movie, because I heard you're talking about American Beauty, the movie,
That movie.
It's a great movie, but it also, so the guy's married, he has a wife, a job, a nice house, and a kid, and he's miserable. He hates it. And that's possible. Right. I think that's a thing that really happens.
Sure.
And I think that the opposite though also happens, There's people that have simple lives, they live in the suburbs, they're married, they have their kids, they're as happy as can be, I don't think that if you want to say like, I don't want to do that, that's okay. But then to say that other thing isn't functional is not, it's not accurate.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that a lot of us, especially in today's cultures, we approach relationships and we approach marriage, fatherhood, motherhood, all this stuff with the idea of this is for my happiness.
Right.
And if my happiness is not achieved, this isn't for me. I'm out. Yeah. And it's like, dude, like every marriage would end if that was the case. Like there's always times when we're not happy in our marriage or as parents or whatever, it's always the case. It's like a job. There's no job where you're happy all the time. Doesn't mean you're just going to quit your job, Right.
Well, that's family, Family is people that you are connected to.
Right.
You don't, a lot of times you may not like them,
right.
But it's still like,
yeah,
those are the people that you're going to still be in contact with, most likely for the rest of your life.
Right. So to go back a little bit.
All right.
So we talked a little bit about good and evil. Do you believe in like sin? Or is that just a word you'd use to describe evil or just doing bad things or like what?
No, I think there's definitely sin.
Okay.
There's definitely things that people do that are bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
and do you think like this energy force, this God, like, do you think he determines what's good and bad, what's sin and what's not sin? Or do you think like people kind of determine that for themselves?
Well, like the thing, like what I was saying before about things being set in motion as like a process, I think that it is predetermined, like what types of things are sinful. They seem to have, to me, it seems like they have things in common. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're stealing, it's selfish. There's selfishness involved in that. If you're being selfless, if you're worrying about other people, you're less likely to do those things. You know what I mean?
What if you're like Robin Hood and you're stealing from the rich to give to the poor?
Right.
That's doing it for somebody else, right? It's a good thing for other people, but you're still doing the wrong thing, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, and it's obviously probably not entirely black and white,
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there's circumstances where you could kill someone.
Yeah.
It'd be the right thing to do.
Right.
And then you want to maybe not be, but I think even if you're a decent person, you're still going to have some like residual after effects of that, of being like, oh my gosh, I took a life. It
would mess me up. It would mess me up.
Yeah. It would mess you up if you're,
even if I felt justified, even if someone came in and was trying to murder and rape my family and I took him out before he was able to do that, I would feel justified in the killing.
Right.
But I would still be a mess for the rest of my life, I think.
Right. And I think that's the thing where I think with people that don't have that, like, I mean, there was a documentary, like a Ted Bundy documentary, and they were talking to him at the end of his life when he was about to get put to death. And he's like, yeah, I didn't care. I felt nothing for those people. They were just objects to me, and it's like, that's horrifying. But I think the thing with that kind of stuff, like, I think that's why community is important for human beings too. It's because you can, like, if you leave your, that's why I think like internet culture is kind of bad, because it kind of reinforces some negative. Because like when we were kids, if you wanted to have friends, you had to go outside and you had to play football and you had to get along with the other kids, because like your friend group was kind of like limited, Your potential friend group was just the people that you knew, that you went to school with, that you knew and around there. And now I think people, they can get in their own world too easily. Yeah. And instead of like, if you have a friend, you say something like crazy like that to one of your friends and he goes, man, like, what are you talking about? Like people correct each other. Like society, I think society corrects people's behaviors by taking, telling you what is acceptable and not acceptable.
Right.
You know? And I think that that's like a thing that like some people need.
It's like isolation. Isolation is bad for people.
Yeah, 100%. I can't think of, if you spend, a couple days by yourself, it's horrifying. That's like the most severe punishment you can give a human being.
Yeah. Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. You're no access to any other people.
I'd go nuts. I couldn't do it. I'd literally go nuts.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Well, you could think when you're like a melodramatic teenager and you're just like, nobody gets me. I'm just going to not talk to anybody and I'm just going to stay in my room and read.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, you're like, hey man, how's it going? What's up? It's like, you can't, you're fainting on your bed like Scarlett O'Hara or something.
Yeah.
Nobody gets me. And then 2 days later, you're like, yeah, I want to hang out with my friends. I don't care if it's gonna,
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I think we're designed that way. I think we're designed to be around other humans, and it's just we're not meant to be alone.
Those are your best experiences, like the best thing. My favorite memories are all related to being around other people.
Yeah. Yep.
Like that's there's one. Like I remember I was going through it was when my wife was pregnant with our second son. She had another rough pregnancy, so we already had a toddler. So things were it was like a hard time. My job was starting to not be great. It was becoming clear that it was going to go away. And we lived by the beach. So I walked my oldest son down to the beach and, walking down there in the stroller. And there was a little, a grass field next to a playground. And, there was a guy was throwing bread at the seagulls.
Oh.
So, and it's starts to get to be the sun starts going down, the really perfect light,
Right.
And then my son there's hundreds of seagulls and he starts just running through the seagulls, chasing around the seagulls with the biggest smile on his face. And it was the most, and I was just like, man, this is it's okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's going to be moments, there's going to be hard moments, and there's going to be this is an amazing, it looks like a painting. It looks like a Renaissance painting or something.
Yeah.
Right there, presented in front of me at the exact right time. And you're just it's going to be all right. So I think that,
that's cool.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. So as a believer in God, I would say that was a God thing.
Yeah.
I would say God gave you that little glimmer.
I think that there's been a lot of, there's some situations like that where you're just you get, I've gotten, what's the interesting thing about that concept is I've gotten what I wanted a lot of times, pre-think about, this would be cool if I got this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get this situation, I get into that situation. And then the thing that makes it not the perfect thing is something about myself that I need to change.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
It teaches you a lesson.
Yeah. So God says if you want to be in this, type of band with these types of people and you want it to be like this and you want to do that. Okay, here's that. And then it doesn't work out. And then it's clear that the reason why it didn't work out is something that I did, So it's I'll give you what you want, but you're going to have, at some point, if you want to be happy, you're going to have to fix this thing about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like that with work. Yeah. That's happened with work situations.
Yeah.
Where I was if I just worked for this kind of company and do this kind of thing, it would be perfect. But then the reason why it's not perfect ends up being something about how I deal with people or some aspect of my personality that's maybe not what it should be.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool, man. So, a lot of your kind of viewpoints of this God character and some of the things you're talking about in your own life lines up pretty well with Christianity.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So what, obviously there's a million religions out there and there's a million belief systems.
Right.
And I'm sure you know enough about Christianity. You kind of understand the core beliefs of it and things like that. I know you just said a minute ago, you're not a Bible scholar or anything, but you know the basic understanding of things. Is there anything specific that you object to the idea of Christianity or things that you just don't fly for you? Or
I think it's probably just a group thing, not wanting to, because I've gone to churches,
okay.
And sometimes, I guess what it would come down to is that I haven't had the moment where it wouldn't be fake for me to just, because you go to church and you see the community, there's great people, they're nice, and like in my head, I'm just like, man, that'd be cool to be a part of this,
Yeah.
But then like but then in those moments, it would have been insincere,
Okay. In what way? Like, just you feel like you're being phony?
Yeah, I'd be like being phony. Like, I like this. I like what this is. Like some of the sermons I like, some of them I don't like, And then so like, if I disagree with something, I would need to fake it to get in, to be in there and to get the community part of it that I'd be looking for,
Right. Well, I'll tell you, man, I've been in lots of different churches since I became a Christian, and I always disagree with some things.
Yeah. That's
like there's never a time where I'm like, that pastor, everything he says is straight up gold.
Well, there's some things that like stuck. Like when we were in a service and the guy was talking about Jonah and the whale.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, the way he was discussing it was that the whale was a good thing. Like outside of the whale is the sea, the tumultuous nature, So if you're going through a hard time and your whale could be, whatever it is you use to deal with those things. I think it was like an addiction discussion, basically.
Right.
So he's saying like if you're traumatized as a kid and you have a horrible childhood and you go to drugs, like that's because you couldn't handle it. So you go, you're in the whale, but eventually the whale becomes a prison, and then you have to go back out into the tumultuous sea. You know what I mean? It just
I hear stuff like that, and that's like a stretch to me. I think like my question is always like, where does it say that in the Bible? Like,
right.
like
see, that's
all
the
that
thing too. It's
stuff.
Because as not being connected to that in that way, I'm just like, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. No, it is. It's great. I mean, it's a cool concept, and it might work for some people that are struggling with certain things. Say, hey, this is a cool like a word picture, or a visual, give you a visual of something like that. But
right. Well, so what does that story mean? What does that? I mean, just out of curiosity.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm kind of a literalist when it comes to scripture and it comes to things, which is why sometimes I'm even at odds with other Christians.
Yeah.
I'll just do like what I just said. I'll be like, but where does it say that? Right. Well, Ryan, I mean, this seems to be showing that it seems to be, and it seems to illustrate. No, I don't do seems to. It either is or it isn't, right?
Right.
I mean, because if we're believing that this is literally the God of all the universe's words that he's given us, I need to take that as it is. I'm not going to add to that or anything, but I mean, so for like,
the basics of the story is in the Bible is that he was in the whale for however many days and he survived.
3 days. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a historical narrative of disobedience because Jonah was told, go to Nineveh and preach to the Ninevites. And Jonah's like, the Ninevites are horrible people. I don't want to go there. I'm going to go this way. So he starts going the other direction and God's like, all right, I guess it's my way then. So he gets swallowed by the whale. The whale vomits him up on the shores of Nineveh. He ends up preaching to the Ninevites. They all they all become followers of God. And then Jonah's ticked off about it. He's mad that these people that were horrible people became good, God-fearing people. So he goes off to pout under a tree. It's just like, so I mean, it's like,
so he got he got course corrected, and then he did what he was supposed to do.
Right.
And because it wasn't his idea, he's upset about the result. I
guess. Yeah. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a lesson in obedience. And it's something that some friends and I have always said, like, as far as like when the Lord wants you to do something, it's by foot or by fish, right? Either going to go on your own accord or it's going to happen somehow. It's not like I can change God's will by like, nope, God, I'm not going to do that. And God's like, great, there goes the world. All because you, Ryan, didn't do what you were supposed to do. It's like everyone else is screwed now, so where do you think the idea of when do people have the ability to intercept God's will, would you say? Intercept meaning like
change. Well, I'm just saying for a horrible thing, like where, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like if you're going to do something bad.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So I believe that God has a will, and I use the words will and desire. And I don't think they're the same thing. Like, I think God's will is, well, let me back up. So when God created humanity, he could have created a bunch of robots per se, and say, okay, you're all going to be programmed to believe these certain things. You're all going to be programmed to never do anything bad, do nothing but good. He could have done that, but he didn't. He gave us free will, right? He gave us the ability to choose good or evil. So then I think God's will is everything from the beginning of time till the end of time, or the end of the world, beginning of the world, however we want to word that. And he knows everything in there that's going to happen. He knows all the bad decisions I'm going to make. He knows all the good decisions I'm going to make. And he allows me to make bad decisions, right? And this is the hard question that people always say, well, how can a God of love allow some kid to go into a preschool and shoot up 30 kids? Because if he's all powerful, he could have stopped that guy at any moment. He could have struck that guy dead. He could have made his gun jam. He could have done any number of things to stop that guy from shooting up all those kids. And those are the hard questions to answer, because I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why he allowed that to happen.
Right.
But he did. So that's where the argument comes in and says, so anyway, my point is that's God's will is everything that happens, but that doesn't mean he desires for that kid to go in. It's not like he's up there smiling. Oh, I'm so glad you just slaughtered all those children. That just makes me so joyous and happy. No, I think it breaks his heart that the creatures that he's created and has given free will to have opted to use their free will in an evil way. I think that kills him.
Right. So then that kid in your mind has a utility to decide not to do that.
The kid who shot up the school?
Yeah.
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 Like, does he have the decision, you mean, to do it?
Yeah, he has the decision to decide whether or not to do it.
Sure. Yeah. But then there's other situations where you'll hear on the news, this kid was caught going to this school and, somebody saw him. Yeah. And they found him before he did anything. Right. And then they catch him and they find all these guns in his backpack. And then they find this note about all what he's going to do. Or he posted online, I'm going to shoot this person, this person, this person.
Yeah.
That guy was stopped before he was able to do it. And God has a reason for that too. And again, what it is, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. I think that like a lot of, in that instance, we were talking about community before. I think a lot of times it wouldn't take that much to stop those things, Just from like, hey kid, like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
If you see that kid approaching that school and just like, cause I think that I think like when you think about like the bullying thing and how it's thought of today in our society.
Oh yeah.
I think like a lot of that, like, I think people got checked more for acting out of line with what was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you were like a weird kid when I was in high school, I was a weird kid. I don't know if you were a weird kid.
I was kind of a weird
people
kid.
would say stuff to you. People would say stuff to you, Like, what are you doing? Like, it wasn't like you weren't allowed to like create
What's
your
wrong
own.
with you?
Yeah. And then like, and sometimes, you have to like, oh, I want to be friends with these guys. So I need to adjust my behavior in this way, which isn't always a good thing, but you do need to get along with the people that are around you, just because someone's favorite band isn't The Cure.
Right.
You can't never speak to someone that doesn't.
Right. Exactly.
If you're like a goth or whatever your preferences are, you can't.
Right.
And that's like a thing too with like, I mean, not to go back to the music thing, but like there's some bands that I think are horrible. And then, but I've known people that I liked where that's their favorite band,
Sure.
I knew a guy's favorite band was 3 Days Grace.
Oh yeah.
And you're a good guy and I like you, but that band's awful. But I didn't say that, but I'm still friends with him. I don't judge.
Well, I've even said before, like Bethany, my wife, she can't stand 15.
Yeah.
She thinks that's the worst band ever in the history of the world. She can't stand his vocals. She thinks he's horrible. And I'm going, hun, this is the greatest band ever to walk the face of the earth. What are you talking about?
My band for that is always Black Flag. Like I've rarely met anybody that likes them as much as I do.
Oh yeah.
Like family hates them. Everybody, there's my friends. No, I've never had like a friend that where we like commiserated over like,
Right.
This band's awesome. But I mean, that's the thing is like, I'm probably wrong,
But I mean, those things to me are subjective. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not that big a deal, but some people get so into that. Like, I hate you if you don't like this band.
Yeah. I used to say like Led Zeppelin sucks.
Yeah.
And like, no, they don't. You know what I mean? Like they don't. They're awesome.
Wasn't there a Screeching Weasel song about how?
Yeah, well, Ben Weasel's right, but it's like no, they're objectively they don't. There's like because we played shows with a lot of like local bands. Those a lot of those bands. Led Zeppelin's probably better than every single one of them.
Oh yeah, I mean? Yeah,
but
sure.
Yeah, but anyways, I don't want to divert.
No, that's good. I like the going around stuff. But when you were just talking a minute ago, I was thinking to myself, you were kind of talking about how bullying and how that kind of stuff affects people and changes things. And you hear those stories of, you know, one kid's walking home and he sees some other kid and he goes over, the kid maybe looks distressed or sad or something. And he says, hey, you know, what's your name? And we talk to you and let me walk you home and, maybe we can hang out tomorrow or something. And you kind of make friends with the kid.
Yeah.
And then the kid will say later, he's like, that guy had no idea I was going to go home and shoot myself today.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like things like that. We have no idea what people are going through. No. So, I mean, I think it's the least we can do is be kind to people and treat them with respect and maybe even make friends with somebody that looks weird to us or looks different or, you know, whatever.
When my son was in second grade, I think it was second or third grade, my oldest son, a new kid came into the school and he made friends with them and he was like talking to them all the time. Mm-hmm. And then we did like they make fun of me for still calling them play dates. Because like, it's not a play date anymore, Dad. Come on. But
so we're way beyond that now.
So we did a play date, you know, with this and the kid, and like the kid he was a funny kid, but he, you know, he's kind of chubby. He had like, you know, he looked like the kind of kid that would get picked on, you know.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to the mom, and I'm just like, I'm so glad like Luke is such a blessing. Like we were so worried about him coming into this new school and how the kids were going to treat him because he had a hard time at the last school. And it's so cool that like he just made a friend right away. And like, you know, that's like what you want to have happen, you know? Yeah. I think that's a positive side of not bullying, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you especially want to hear that about your kids, that they're treating their peers that way. I mean, that warms your heart, you know, because you never want to hear that your kid's the bully.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's a thing too. When you have kids, like the things that you have like a visceral reaction to of the behaviors that your kids do, you know? Yeah. Kind of shows you like what kind of people that you want your kids to be, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. That's funny because like the cussing, I remember that's been a thing for you for forever. Like I remember a party at your old apartment where, you and Bethany sat me down and you were talking to me about my cussing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even remember this.
Yeah. So you guys sat me down and you're like, oh man, and I think I said, I'm effing sorry.
Yeah.
Like when cause you're just like, yeah, it's kind of like, why are you cussing? Like, you know, this is kind of like, this is my, you know, and it wasn't like we were talking about it. You weren't like reprimanding me or anything.
Yeah. How funny.
But yeah, I remember that. And I'm just like, yeah, they're kind of right. You know, like why? But now that I have kids, you know, I don't cuss. If I'm around other dudes, I still cuss or whatever. Yeah. But like, I don't cuss in front of my kids.
You know, I don't want them to.
Yeah, I don't want them to talk like that. You know, so it's kind of like,
of course.
Funny. But that's one of my core Ryan memories.
That's too funny, man. I have no recollection of that. Was that in my apartment?
Yeah, you had like a little. I don't know if it was a party, but there was people there. It was like a get together thing.
Okay, I remember that because there was a girl that we worked with that you liked.
Yeah.
I forgot what her name. Melinda. Yeah. I remember that because I think that was the whole reason we had that party.
Yeah, it was like
because we're trying to play matchmaker, you know. And she wasn't having it, man. She just was.
She was not.
And I don't remember who else was there that night. There was somebody. It
was a bunch of people.
I think it was like all Little Caesars people.
Yeah, but yeah, I remember that was like, yeah, why? You kind of cuts a lot.
How funny! How funny, dude!
It was fun.
Wow, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
So the last thing because we're getting close on time here, but I want to kind of back to, you were talking about how you've gone to churches and you've done that before, obviously.
Right.
What led you to do that? Is your wife wanting to do that, or was it kind of you just having a thought on your own, like, hey, maybe I want to check this out? Or
yeah, it was a thing that we kind of did together, you know, just to kind of.
Is she a believer, or is she just kind of seeking like you are?
Yeah, it's just, we're both kind of seeking like that. I mean, I think it was a thing that, like, I don't know. I think the community aspect of it, I think when you have, because I've always, like, as far as like my friend group, I have like my core friends that are like, you know, doing the same things, but all those guys moved away, you know? So then you make friends when you're older. It's kind of like people that I grab, you know, I don't want to, you know, nothing against punk rockers. Right. You know? But I don't, you know, like you make friends with someone and like, oh, let's go have some beers or let's go. Right. It's like, no, man, I want to go, I got to go hang out with my kids, you know?
Yeah. I'm a family man now. Yeah.
I got, you know, I can't start a band, you know?
Right.
It's over. Right. It's gone.
You got to grow up sometime.
Got to grow up at some point, you know? Yeah. Maybe. I mean, it's probably the industry's fault that I didn't make it, but you know, maybe I wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Maybe that's a small scintilla of potential that maybe I just wasn't that good at it.
Right.
But yeah, so you kind of, then you think about like what kind of people are, focused on raising their families. And, I think, it just didn't, it didn't work out.
Yeah. How long ago was that? Like the last time you guys went to a service?
Like 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, it's been a while. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And like among the both of you, like what was it that was turning you off? Like, were you like,
I just don't think I like connected all the time.
Okay. And
also then you're giving up your Sunday.
Yeah.
Dragging the kids out of bed in the morning, they don't want to, then and I just think it didn't really, and then I've always had long hours at work. So then it's also kind of like, man, do I want to wrestle the kids into the car every Sunday to go, when I could, read. I've read a lot of, one of my favorite books was, it's called The Sermon on the Mount.
Oh, that's in the Bible, you mean?
No, it's a book that's
based on that. Okay.
The Beatitudes. Is that
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a book that was based all on that. Like it was based, the whole book was, that's, one of my favorite books, So
okay.
I don't think I'm definitely not opposed to the concept, but it's never really, I haven't had the moment, I guess.
Yeah. So what would that moment be? This will be the last question I asked you. Like, what would it take for you? Would it have to be like an appearance of God in front of you, or would it have to be like some circumstance that was just undeniable?
I think it's a stubborn part of my own personality that would have to be, the stubborn part of my personality that would have to be addressed would be that okay, so, but what if I do everything that you want me to do and I don't become a Christian,
Right.
Why is that not good? You know what I mean? Like, why is that? Like if you're a basketball coach and you teach a kid to shoot a certain way and the kid decides not to shoot that way and then he scores 85 points, Yeah. Like, he didn't do it your way. He didn't follow all the instructions, but he got to where you wanted him to get. So I think, that might sound childish.
No, it's an interesting analogy. For sure. But I think it comes down to what is the truth of the matter. Like, it's either true or it's not. Like when
I think part of the process is probably like setting aside the idea of I need to know and all my answers need to be answered. Like all my questions need to be answered. It's kind of like that's an anti-enlightenment position,
Right.
Because I think part of it is the faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not knowing, if I know for sure, if God showed up at my door and knocked on the door and goes, hey man, Jesus, Moses, Paul, all that stuff, it's all legit, 100% legit. Then where's the faith in that? There's no faith in that. That's just, okay.
Yeah. See, I know for me, when I wasn't a believer, if that would have happened to me, I would have just thought I was losing my mind. I wouldn't have.
Well, yeah.
I would be like, hey, I'm seeing ghostly figures on my doorstep. I need to get checked in the padded room or something.
Yeah, God's talking to me. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Right. I'm schizophrenic. Something's happening. Right. So yeah. But I think the faith aspect, and this is something that I've learned over the years about faith in general, is that people talk about a blind faith or a leap of faith, they call it sometimes. I personally don't see that taught in scripture. I don't think that's something because to me, faith is based on evidence.
Right.
Like faith to me means I'm going to line myself up with what, not what I can know 100% is true, because I don't think there's anything in the world we can know 100% is true.
Right.
I consider somebody told me one time, well, Ryan, I know 100% true that I'm sitting here right now. I said, no, you don't. How do you know this isn't the Matrix? How do you know you're not like some figment of some imagination? Or, how do you know? You don't know that, right? You're pretty sure you are because all the evidence seems to be pointing that direction, but you can't be 100% sure. So, for me, I hated Christianity. The passion. When I was in Ramona, I hated all of that. That's why I loved bands like Propagandhi and Bad Religion and these bands that were like, oh yeah, screw religion and, all this stuff is dumb. And I was like, yeah, it is.
But then what do you replace that with? Right.
Well, for me, I was never atheist.
Right.
So, it wasn't, I always believed in God, whatever that meant to me. And it was usually the God I had created in my own mind. He was the God that said, yeah, Ryan, everything you're doing is fantastic. I think you're a wonderful guy. You just keep on going the way you're going and just make yourself happy in any way you can, I was like, okay, if that's the way you are, God, we can be buddies,
I remember I was at a church retreat thing when I was a teenager with my grandparents. And the guy was like, there was a sermon going on or whatever. And he like had me, I was like all in, you know what I mean? I was like all in. And then he goes, but the only way to do this is through Jesus.
Yeah.
And then then he lost me.
See, that was me.
Yeah. It's such
narrow-minded.
It's such a tiny little, like, yeah, it's egotistical. Right. It's an egotistical thing, you know?
Yeah. Unless it's true.
Right. Well, no, I'm saying it's egotistical. It's egotistical to think that you would know better.
Oh, right. But see, that's what turned me off about Christianity. That's why I was okay with all the other religions, because all the other ones were like, yeah, this is what we believe, but whatever you believe is okay.
Yeah.
Christianity said, no, this is the only way. And I'm like,
right.
Hold up. That's narrow-minded, that, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing about that one book that I was talking about was like, in that book, he says like, yeah, when he says the only way is through Jesus, is like Jesus was his message.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I don't know if that's probably not, Jesus was a person and all that. I know that.
Right.
He was a person, but like his actions and his like, how he conducted himself, you know, like that's
right. That's what I would see as a problem with some of those books and teachings that center strictly on the Beatitudes and almost teach it like, yeah, as long as you do these things, you'll be just like Jesus and therefore you're okay. And it's like, well, but then you have to discount all the other things Jesus said about that,
you're cherry picking it.
Exactly. And that's a big thing. And there's you just reminded me of, there's a funny commercial that's on Christian radio sometimes where this husband and wife go into the doctor's office and he's just been bit by a black mamba or something, like some, and he's like, oh, you just been bit. And the doctor says, and the husband goes, am I going to die? And the doctor goes, well, by estimation, you have about 5 minutes to live, and he's like, oh my gosh. And the doctor goes, however, there is one known antidote and I have it right here. And he goes, I'll take it. And the wife goes, wait a minute. There's only one known antidote. Isn't that a little narrow-minded? I mean, can we get a second opinion? And he's like, no, I'll take it. And the doctor's like, trust me, ma'am, this is the only way. There's only one way to save your husband's life. And he's like, I'll take it. She's like, but I mean, again, I totally get it. Like if it's not true, it is the most arrogant, narrow-minded, selfish kind of religion belief you could have, to say, I have it the right way. Everyone else is wrong. Follow me and go to heaven. If you don't follow me, you're going to hell. Right? It's like, wow, it is like an interesting gamble. Maybe a gamble's not the right way to put it, but if I die and I go to heaven and I'm like, he's like, yeah, you're an all right guy, but whoops. Yeah. You picked, you with the wrong, just that one other thing. You were right there, bro. Yeah. Could have had it. Yeah. Well, I've talked to people that like have saved lives. Like let's say a doctor, an ER doctor who's in his lifetime has saved 500 lives or something, right? This amazing thing, yet they're an atheist. And they'd say, you're telling me, Ryan, that doctor who saved 500 lives and did so many good things, you're telling me they're going to go to hell simply because they didn't believe in Jesus? I'd say, well, if it's true, then yes.
Right.
Because that's really the question. Is it true or is it not true? It doesn't matter if I think it's wrong, if I think it's fair, if I think it's, all that is irrelevant. It's either true or it's not true, Where
are you putting all your chips?
Yeah. Right.
It's like that one that it's like another, I don't know if it's a joke, but it's like a story where there's a guy on the life raft in the middle of the ocean, and the boat goes by and he goes, and they try to rescue him and he goes, no, the Lord will save me, Yes. And then another boat comes by and the Lord, and then he goes, and he gets to he dies and he goes to heaven and God's like, man, I sent you like 3 boats. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly. Cause we want it our way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Lord, if you're not going to just snatch me up off of this raft in thin air, then I don't want it, Right. So, can you hear that?
I think that was me kicking. That might have been me kicking my chair.
Oh, no, we have an air show going on right now, and that was a big one, just flew over my phone.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you could hear it or not, but.
Yeah, I heard a little noise.
But that's the whole idea, right? That it's like, people will say, you know what, God, I'll believe in you if you do it my way. As long as you save me in your way. I mean, in my way, the way that I think you should do it, then we're okay, you know.
Or if I do this for an amount of time and my life doesn't improve in these ways, then you're not
then you're not real. Yeah, exactly.
You're not holding up your end of the bargain, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So
that's funny.
All right, man. Well, shoot. That was a lot of fun, dude. That was like...
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool to get to catch up after all this time.
Yeah, hopefully I spoke clearly, and I have a tendency to stutter. And
yeah. No, I thought it sounded great.
Hopefully it was all right.
I thought it sounded great, man. I'll have to listen. I always listen back through them because I've had a lot of technological issues where I've lost parts of episodes, and it hasn't happened yet with a Zoom one like this, because I'll do some of them with local people that just come to my house and we'll just talk across the table. But
that's a really cool thing that you do, is that because when you think about a podcast, like where you have like interesting people from your own life, like up until now.
Right. Yeah. No.
But because it's like when I first started, I'm like, this is like two people that I don't know talking about stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then on paper, that sounds like why, you know.
Right.
Obviously, I know you. What's funny is I didn't recognize your voice until you started laughing.
Yeah.
Because you have
the first person ever say that.
You have a very distinct laugh.
Yeah,
so I was like, okay. Because I listened to it, I'm like, wait, is this the guy that I heard listen to the intro, and I'm like, that doesn't sound, I don't remember that voice. And then you started laughing, and I was like, there he is. There it is.
Well, my voice is a little off because I did just get over a cold. So my voice is a little, I got my sexy voice on today. So, but yeah, so it's very, very cool. All right, man.
Thank you, man. Well, it was a lot of fun.
That's it, dude. Thank you. I apprate it. So we'll keep in touch for sure.
Yep, definitely.
Let's not wait another 20 years till the next time we talk. So
yeah, we'll see what comes first, me liking Guttermouth or me becoming a Christian, right?
Well, I hope it's the latter.
Yeah, hopefully. That's more likely. All right, man.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For questions or comments, my email is whycan'twetallkaboutthat@proton.me. If you want to continue the conversation, please join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group. If you haven't yet, please leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to this from. Thanks. Here's a clip from next week.
Giving that should be on your top priority. Mm. What can I do to give to somebody today?
Right. Putting others above yourself.
Always.
Yeah.
Because if you're putting yourself first, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
And so, being a Christian, it's about giving. It's about putting others first and doing your work through God. Mm-hmm. And it could be little things. I'm not saying you have to change the world, right. But if you see somebody if I'm at the grocery store and there's somebody in front of me and they're short money, I got it.
Yeah.
I got you, because guess what? I can do that, and I can give you that. Right. And if that makes one little different impact in that person's day, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So be it.